Peace and greetings. We're going to start in a few minutes. Start in a couple of minutes. It's going to actually was able to get on about a minute or two early, so I'm going to get everybody a few minutes left. Alrighty, we will get about 2 more minutes. It's about 8:05. Again, I got on a few minutes early. Which is a rarity, and then we'll get going. So let me just wait about another 2 minutes. Be patient. Enjoy the music. another minute. We're getting there. I remember this one right here. All right, let's get going with the greetings. We'll start with that, and then we'll get into the announcements. I'll stop the music. All right, peace and greetings to Blade of Astareth, Dank Wizard, Keona Living Magic, Mandela Born, Mama Muerte. Matter of fact, I gotta give you a call. I don't know if it gets too late tonight, I will give you a buzz tomorrow. Just gotta run something by you. Mama Muerte, I'm gonna give you a call. Ichigo Uzumaki, Sister Oni, what's going on? Been a minute. Hope everything's good with you. Brother Angel Figueroa and the whole Black Flame 11 crew. Shout out to the whole Black Flame 11 crew, New York City. I'll be running through that. All right, yeah, all right. All right, maybe I give you a. All right, Mama, I'll probably give you a quick call right after we get off. I just got to run something by you real quick. Yeah, all right, yeah, because then you ain't gonna be able to contact me probably in the morning. But all right, we'll discuss it. All right, so peace and greetings to everybody. Let me try not to drum. I'm kind of getting into it though. This is actually, I think also this was at the Triad of Light and Darkness ritual a couple of years ago. This is myself. I know I'm playing the djembe on this one. Jack's on one of the djembes, and Brother Mike, a.k.a. Seth Atler. You'll be hearing some of this on Saturday for those that are coming. We're about to go in on some serious drumming on Saturday night. It's going to be some good shit. That's all I can tell you. Be ready. All right. Peace and greetings. I'm sorry. When I hear drums, I'm like a little kid. I get sucked in like a magnet. All right. Real quick, run through the announcements. It is Tuesday, October 22nd. So we are right there at the cusp. We are less than 3 days away from the first day of the Conference of the Black Adept, Journey of the Black Adept number 2. It's here. We've been planning for it. We've been promoting it. We're going to have a very decent turnout for this, looking like double from last year, which I kind of expected. And I expect it to continue to grow as we do this on an annual basis. For those that are registered and are coming, you pretty much have all your instructions. Just make sure you bring the small items that are required for you to bring. Remember, we start Friday morning, 9 a.m. sharp, first presentation. We'll have a meet and greet, coffee and donuts. Everybody will introduce themselves. We'll do that for about the first 30 minutes. And then the first presentation should kick off about 9:30. So be in the building 9 a.m. sharp. You should have all your directions, your location. If by chance you don't have that information, and you should, send me an email so you have the address for the location. Let's not operate on CPT time. Those that work with me know I'm pretty accurate when it comes to things like that for the most part. We learned, again, a little bit from last year. We fell short of time and we had to condense. I don't want to try to do that this year. I would like to try the best to our ability, and I know shit happens. Can't prevent everything. I would like, to the best of our ability, to stay as accurate as we can on the time schedule. So we don't have to do or condense anything like we did last year, because time flies. It's just amazing how quick it goes. It looks like on paper, you think you have enough of time to do all this stuff, but we're going to make it happen. So I'm looking forward. I'm excited. I'm laughing because there's going to be some good shit. Friday night is, for those that are going to be there Friday night, that'll be a ritual. I'm sure that'll stay with you forever after you go through it. Saturday night, we will be out on the beach. We have a Egoon drumming ritual planned for the beach with some other stuff. We will top it off Sunday with a class and a ritual. We will have a dinner on Friday night after the ritual, and we'll have another get together on Saturday night. And then Sunday, we'll finish it out late in the afternoon, early evening. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited. And for those that are coming, I know you and everybody else, including myself, will leave after this conference with getting something from it, and we'll be able to take it back wherever we go with it, and it's something that we'll be able to draw upon. And that's the objective of the conference. It's for people that are on this path where we can come together, get together, grow on the path, exchange ideas. I'm excited to see. We have a bunch of new presenters at this one. I'm excited. I know Sister Trina's got a presentation prepared. I know Sister Tanisha, Raven Hecker will be doing a presentation. So I'm excited to see some different things. Brother Seth Athena will be doing something again this year. He's going to be talking about some of his experiences, etc. But anyway, I could be going on and on about that. That's going to be this Friday, 25th to 27th. There is really cutoff date to attend. I know it'll probably be tough to, especially if you're coming from out of state. You still can. Cutoff is up until the day before. So if you need information on that event, I know Brother Rashawn, he registered last minute. Be my first time meeting with the brother, so I'll be excited to see him. He's taking some of my classes, so it's going to be fun. Looking forward to it. But you can shoot me an email. It's in the description box there, canoom19@gmail.com. And just to put out there, readings and consultations. It's a little jammed up right now because I had to force some extra up until before the conference. I will not be able to do any pretty much from Thursday afternoon till Sunday. You could still email me for a consultation or a reading. And I can schedule you starting next week. It's going to be pretty much impossible to do anything from Thursday to Sunday. I have maybe 1 or 2 spots available tomorrow, and maybe 1 spot early in the afternoon, late morning on Thursday. That's all I could squeeze in last minute. Outside of that, I will have to schedule everybody that contacts me for a consultation or a reading the following week after the conference is over. When you send me an email, please specify in the email whether you want a spiritual reading or a spiritual consultation, all right? Let me know the days and times you are available and the time zone that you live in, all right? So this way we can come up with a time that works for both of us, all right? Just want to put that out there. Then we have the Lilith class, which is going to be Saturday. That's 2 weeks from now, 2 Saturdays from now. That'll be Saturday, November 2nd from 3 to 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I know a couple more people signed up this week. Please make sure you make a note. I'm going to say this up until the day of the class. Make sure you coordinate with Eastern Standard Time. So if you're living on the West Coast, that's 3-hour time difference. Mountain Time, that's 2 hours. Central, that's an hour time difference, etc. Please coordinate accordingly. All right. Sometimes there gets a little confusion with that. I've had people sign on an hour late, an hour early, not realizing that they need to make that adjustment. Okay. So that's the 3 main things. Once this conference is over, I'll start. There's going to be some more upcoming things I'll put out there. I'm going to get some more guests coming back on the show. I haven't really ventured out, bringing some guests back. Pretty much due to the fact that, the focus is on the conference right now and getting that finished. And then once that's over, I'll start bringing some more people back on the show. All right. So what I want to kind of discuss tonight. Oh, before I do that, so I don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And also after you subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you get a notification every time we go live or anytime there's a new video uploaded. Also check us out on Instagram, Primordial Chaos, and Facebook, Primordial Chaos. Also hit the like button, please. The like button expands the channel on a broader platform throughout YouTube. It'll pop up in more areas. The more likes, the more people the channel reaches. So please appreciate it if you hit the like button. The channel is monetized. Donations are always appreciated. Not necessary, but it is always appreciated for the time and effort that's put into doing these classes, videos, etc. There's two ways to donate to the channel. If you go right to the bottom of your live chat screen, you'll see a money symbol. You can donate that way, or you can actually go to PayPal and use the email in the description box to donate and support the channel, which is greatly appreciated. All right, so you see the topic tonight. All right. Oh, and also last thing, sorry, Black Flame 11. If you're in the New York City area, the tri-state area, surrounding areas, as you know, we have formed a group in this past August. We did a ritual at the cemetery in the Bronx in New York. As you see the elder god in here, I like to call him the elder god, Brother Angel Figueroa. He's probably I like to call him the elder god of the Black Flame 11. If you would like to get down with the work that we're doing, and I say the work, it's not a Mickey Mouse club. It's not a social club. It's not a hangout. We're not shooting the shit. It's a group of people, again, as I've said before, that have come together to do work collectively and individually. We have a once a month video meeting, video conference call. We've already planned our next event in New York, which will be on March 20th. That is set. Where as we lead up and get closer, we're a few months out. That event will be in Astoria, Queens, in New York. We're forming. We're in the beginning stages. We've gotten the general outline of what we're going to do. If you would like to get down or be a part of that group, and you're going to do work, not a curiosity seeker, not being nosy, not just wanting to see what's going on. If you come in and we see you're not doing any work or participating, we're going to politely ask you to leave. So if you are in the surrounding areas, the tri-state area, the New York City area, send me an email. I'll link you in with the group and we'll go from there. And again, we'll see what you can contribute. We're not talking about just financially. What are you going to contribute to the overall work that we're doing? That's key. I want to make that clear because this shit is about work, contrary to what people might say. All right, so the topic, now that I got that out of the way. The topic, the Book of Enoch, Azazel, the Watchers. We hear a lot about this in the occult, on the left-hand path. You'll hear this used or referenced to, whether it's in not just the occult, the hidden mysteries, esotericism, Freemasonry has a connection with the Book of Enoch. Even when you get into black magic, the black mass, satanic magic, as you know, in the traditional black mass or the satanic mass, the Enochian keys are used. If anybody has actually at any point in time utilized or worked with some form of the traditional black mass. There's a lot of different philosophical debate on the Book of Enoch. As we know, there's also a system we might have or are familiar with or work. I know a lot of people email me about Enochian magic, right? Or the keys of Enoch. But let me make this clear. Just like when you're working with different archetypes of deities, there are lighter, and let me give you an example. Let's use per se Hecate. We can refer to Hecate. There is a more new age Wiccan aspect of Hecate, and then there's a more, when you're working with the Clepothic tree, there's a more darker, intense black magic aspect of Hecate, right? Well, you'll tend to see that with the Book of Enoch and how Enochian magic is used. I'm going to be talking more in reference. I'm not dealing with all that fluffy shit, that new age shit, because let's keep it real. In some of the occult practices, in some of the information, some of the rituals and the deities, just like religion, it has been watered down. And I want to make that clear. So I'm not referring to it, nor do I use it or care to discuss it in some new age fluffy way. All right. I want to make that clear. All right. Because I tend, as you see me talking about a lot in some last videos based on emails I've gotten, we have too many people that are coming on this path, in my opinion, that are basically just watered down occult hoteppers, I like to call them, because it's becoming a trendy thing. And that's not the aspect that I'm coming to. If that's your thing, that's your thing. Cool. But that's not what this is about. You won't see me getting into any aspects of that. I want to make that clear, because I know when you hear the Book of Enoch, your mind can go to a bunch of different areas. So we're talking about it more from a black magic, left-hand path of self-mastery, occult perspective, not no watered down new age aspect. So when we talk about the Book of Enoch, I'm going to get into a little bit of the history of the Book of Enoch. I'll get into Azazel, and that's important, because Azazel's role in being the leader of the Watchers, we'll go through some of the Watchers. And a lot of these spirits, if we want to call them angels, some will refer to them as fallen angels, which I don't like that word, because fallen is a word that the religious people have used in their theology to describe something that's adverse to their belief system. I went a little bit into that when we talk about Melik Taus, the peacock angel, when we did some videos on the Yazidi practices, okay? And I showed how that was twisted and how their perspective is looked at completely the opposite. So when we're using terms evil, fallen angels, these are all religious dogmatic terms created by religious theologians, and we don't want to get caught up in that, right? As I said before, the fall of the Bible really was our ascent, right? Because when we fell, we had to fall to rise. We came to the realization that we were not going to conform. When I say we, I'm talking about those who have made the conscious decision to be on the path of self-mastery, to be the sole governor and rule of their spirituality, to not conform to any specific spiritual practice, religious system, laws, and dogmas. That's what I'm talking about when I say we. I want to make that clear, because I know you hear a term like that. We, who the fuck are we talking about? We, I'm using in reference to all of us listening, all of us. All right. Now, the Book of Enoch, like a lot of other lost or text, spiritual or religious texts that are not considered valid or mainstream, we could also include in there the Gospel of Barnabas. We could also include in there some of the Apocrypha books, and the word Apocrypha is just a Greek word. Hidden, right, or lost. You have, for an example, amongst theologians, the King James Bible has 66 books, the mainstream one. The Catholic Church and others use the 6 other books of the Apocrypha, which you'll find they have comprised of 72 books. And the deep thing is the 7 and 2 and 9. And then you have also the 66, which is 12, which is 1 and 2 is 3. 3 times 3 is multiples of 9. There's a science behind that. But we'll get into that other time. I'll get into that another time. Is anything buffering? Just to make sure. My internet connection is good here. Kiona says it's buffering. Let's just make sure maybe it's just your connection. Anybody else buffering? Please type in. But my connection is showing strong. Any buffering on my end? All right. Kiona, might just be you. Maybe go back out or refresh your connection and come back in. All right. If any buffering, I'll watch for that. All right. So yeah, like a lot of these lost texts, then we know the signs of the Dead Sea Scrolls. We have to understand the history. Also, we know the Nicene Council, or the Council of Nicaea, got together and made the conscious decision of what books, the powers that be. And remember, when the Nicene Council got together, and I read a quote from that, I think in the Assassins book, from when I did a video on the Assassins a while back, might have been 6-7 months ago. Remember, they got together and decided religion was the best technique to use to create fear, to keep the masses controlled. So they got together and made a conscious decision of what books they decided they're going to keep in there and what books they're not. Because when you look at, like, we'll use, for example, the book of Enoch, and we'll use, let's say, the Gospel of Barnabas. If anybody is familiar with the Gospel of Barnabas, it's completely adverse to mainstream Christian theology. For those that may or may not know, and I would suggest you research this, because we should know this information so we could correct it. Because I'm saying this to say, you say, Brother Beniti, what's the point? Why should I waste my time and energy studying all that religion? Well, you should. I'm not saying to study it because you should accept it, but you should study it to master it, to know it, so you can teach and correct others. That's why, when it comes up. That's why I'm saying it is our job and duty to know that, because you can't say something is incorrect or wrong and then not follow it up with correct information. Whether people accept it or not, that's irrelevant. That's not your job. You can't force or get them to accept it. That's irrelevant. It is your job to correct it when need be. Now, whether people are familiar or not, if you have studied and done research on the Gospel of Barnabas, then you know what I'm about to say. All right. When you read the Gospel of Barnabas, who's Barnabas? Well, Barnabas, technically, genealogy-wise, would be Jesus's half brother. He was the son of Joseph. He son of Joseph and Mary. He would be by way of him being in the family, like an in-law or a half brother from a previous marriage, etc. He's one of the original 12 disciples. Now, I'm saying all this according to religious theology. By no way am I basically trying to say that this is fact. I'm saying according to their theology. Okay? So this is what we do right here to assholes like this. That's all we do. There we go. All right. All right. So in no way is it being presented, okay, anyway, we'll just ignore. We got some racist fool in here, but we will ignore him. All right, but anyway, in no way is this being passed as, or I'm telling you to accept as fact. I'm saying when you're studying the just play this game. Man. So in the Gospel of Barnabas, it talks about that Christ was never crucified, right? It gives a whole different account of the so-called crucifixion. Okay. Let's make that clear. That's why that was one of the books they decided to leave out. It gives a whole different account. Now, this, according to their theology and history, this gives the account from Barnabas, who was one of the original 12. Why is that important? Because when you study the history of Matthew, Mark, and Luke, remember, they're not either three of them are not of the original 12. I just want to make that clear. The only one in your mainstream 66 books in the King James Version of the Bible would be the Gospel of John. So that's the only one that's part of the original 12. I don't want to get into all that. I've done videos and classes on that. Read the first chapter of Luke. You'll see that. They're read on eyewitness testimonials and accounts. That's it. So the point being is these were people that wrote these books afterwards. So there was a conflict between when the Nicene Council got together, there was a conflict between how could they present this, package it up, but eliminate the inconsistency. So they had to eliminate the inconsistencies by eliminating certain books which they felt would go against the mainstream dogma and indoctrination that they were trying to push. All right. That's the Book of Enoch would fall under one of these categories. So what I want to focus in here in the Book of Enoch, in the very beginning, I'm going to go through some of the stuff in the introduction. The story that you read in Genesis, you hear me talk a lot about Genesis chapter 6, verse 4. You hear me talk about that story a lot in different videos. The Book of Enoch goes a little more in depth in it. We're gonna touch on that because really that's the formation of the Watchers and their connection to how they got here, and Azazel. We're going to talk a little bit about that. All right. So let's get a little, just a little history on the Book of Enoch and go through that real quick. All right. All right. And I'm reading from, I think this is Richard Lawrence's translation. Obviously, too, the Book of Enoch, there's so many different translations out there. They all, for the most part, you might find some of the wording in it vary, but for the most part, most of them are decent. I would make sure you get one with the Ethiopian text. Richard Lawrence's version does. You can get free copies of it on Scribe. There's a lot of PDF. I'm actually reading a copy off of Scribe that I have, and I believe it's Richard Lawrence. I'll check that in a minute. All right. But let me read. The Book of Enoch was looked upon as heretical, right? Or, as not legit, right? So it's funny how a group of men can get together and just because they got a title or some authority, they can just make a statement and say that's not legit, that's not valid, and then flip the script and then make the same statement and say this is valid. And we never really question it. When I say we, I'm talking about people that are embedded and indoctrinated with religion. They never really questioned it. A lot of us didn't probably prior to being on this path. So it's not considered as a legit book. I'm saying that to say, so if you argue with a really indoctrinated religious person, they're not going to accept this. And it's important you know that. So as you explain or you teach and you educate, you're giving it to them the right way. All right. Its survival as a complete text was due to different attitude on the part of Ethiopian Christians. Now, the Ethiopians, when you go back to Ethiopians, you have to factor in the Philossians of ancient Ethiopia, right? Now, the Philossians of ancient Ethiopia come or are connected to a tribe called the Hanandawa tribe, right? Which goes back to the tribe of Judah. And I'll tell you why this is all important, all right? In the second book of Kings, chapter 17, verses 17 to 19, it talks about all the tribes were destroyed except for Judah only. That was the only tribe that was spared. Then when you get into your Gospels and the coming of Christ, right? Christ says, I was sent not but, Matthew 15, verse 24, I was sent not but to the lost sheep of the house of Israel, which is Judah. We can confirm that by the second book of Kings, because as it says, according to biblical history, that God was angry with Israel and removed them all out of his sight except for Judah. So this is who Christ was sent to, right? The Ethiopians or the Hanandawa, right, were also, and there's a lot of speculation to this day, whether it's the Knights of Templars in France or the Philossians in Ethiopia, as far as this relic that we call the Ark of the Covenant. This all ties into what we're going to, or is connected to what we're going to talk about, all right? Because we know the Ark of the Covenant was a power tool. It was a device that contained an immense amount of power. When you really study the Torah, if you really understand it, the Levitical priesthood those were literally clothing and artifacts they wore as conductors so they didn't get electrocuted when they went in and handled the Ark of the Covenant. And that's why a priesthood was specifically assigned to attending to the Ark, right? They made movies about it, Raiders of the Lost Ark, right? Indiana Jones, and that was about the big search or the scramble for power between different fractions for the Ark of the Covenant, right? And they transported it wherever they went, right? This is also very similar to what they called the coffer in ancient Egypt. And it was very similar to an individual called Thutmose I, who was responsible for maintaining and handling that coffer. And he had a priesthood. Thutmose, yes, phonetically, very same name as Moshe, Musa, Moses. He who is drawn out of water, because we know that story was grafted from cultures that predated it, including Egypt. I know it's going to be a lot. I'm kind of going to be all over the place, but I'm trying to jam this in. I've done videos on this, and in one of my sessions, I do classes, the occult breakdown on the Bible and the Quran. We do a whole breakdown on this in depth when we have more time. All right, so the Colossians are purported or said to have had possessed the Ark of the Covenant. There's that big debate. This is all connection because the Ethiopian text of the book of Enoch is something that they lay claim also in its original original text to have in their possession. All right, so let's continue on with the book of Enoch. All right, the original text was in Semitic language, most probably a combination of Hebrew and Aramaic, right? I want to make sure we understand that. Hebrew is not Aramaic. Most people think Hebrew and Aramaic are the same thing. They're not. Hebrew was a dialect that came out of Aramaic. Aramaic was the original Semitic language that a lot of these books or texts were written into. I want to make sure that we're clear on that, okay? We have to understand that. Now, you'll hear a term Aramaic Hebrew because there's a difference between the classical Aramaic, then you have Hebrew that came out of the Aramaic, and then don't confuse what you see today, the people that call themselves Jews today and what we know as modern day Israel. They're speaking a dialect of Hebrew called Yiddish, which is a combination of German, a very poor grammar aspect of what we know as Hebrew, Yiddish. It's not the same thing. So we have to make sure. Why is that important? Because when a lot of these texts were translated, they were translated, and you'll see a variance when you do your research on these books and you do the comparisons, right? You will see, then when you get later into Ethiopia, the Amharic, which that gets into something else, the Ge'ez. The list goes on. It's important. Now, look, I'm not saying that you need, if you have the time, so be it. I'm not saying you need to be a linguistic scholar, but you should have a basic understanding of this at minimum. All right. So let me continue. And then I'm going to take it up into that Genesis story, the first coming of Azazel and the Watchers, right? Because Azazel is a representation of us. Azazel is a spirit or an energy that we work with on this path that knew by making the conscious decision of not being a conformist, and we're going to read the story in the book of Enoch, by taking the conscious decision to be the sole governor of his spiritual path, he knew what was going to come with that. All right, we're going to talk a little bit about that. I talked about in a previous video I did about Azazel, how we correlate that on this path, how we all take, especially when we first come on the path, we take on the mindset of an Azazel because we know we're going to be scrutinized. We know people are going to talk shit. We know people are not going to understand what this path is about, what it is we do. We know we're going to be ostracized, criticized, but Azazel didn't give a fuck, and neither should you, okay? And that's why when you hear me said over the years in videos, one of the first things you must learn on this path is not to be concerned with what other people think. You know, when you get you get occasionally earlier, like whatever idiot that was in here earlier, or people you run into earlier, they got nothing better to do. You understand? But troll other people because they don't have no life and they're miserable in their own existence, their own life, and what they're doing. We don't care. We're not interested. Even if we see something somebody else is doing and we don't agree with it, not agree with it in the sense that we want to lash out and do something drastic. If it's just not our cup of tea, we're not vibing with it, we don't go out of our way to just complain, bitch, and moan about it. What we take the mind, say, hey, that's good for them. That works for them. I'm going to do me, you do you. And we keep it moving. That's what this is about, okay? So we have to first understand there's going to be backlash when you come on this path. Especially your first and foremost critics are going to be your direct family and friends. When you take that Azazel approach, they're not going to, I hear the stories all the time. Again, myself, I was fortunate, didn't really come up in a super religious family. My mother probably, she passed away at a very early age of 96. She probably was, in a sense, a devoted Catholic. My father was just not down with it, very open-minded, despised Christianity and the Catholic Church. He thought they were the biggest crooks on the planet. My three sisters are very spiritual and open-minded. They're neutral in their spirituality. So I per se wasn't really had to deal with that, but I know a lot of people do. Family members tend to not understand it. You'll hear terms like you're crazy, you're evil, you're a devil worshiper, you're this, you're that, because you got to understand, you can't really out the gate get mad because they're only doing what they've been programmed to do. And I always said the way to combat that is the mistake that some people do. You can't convert your family or your immediate friends that don't understand your spiritual path. Fighting with them, arguing with them, debating with them is just going to make matters worse. Unless they've shown the mentality that they're willing to have an open and honest dialogue about it in a very mature and respectful way, that's fine. That's one thing. But the approach I see some people make, they want to argue and fight and convince their family that what they know is right. That's the biggest mistake you can do. And I've always told people, if you're living in your family's house and you're up under their rules because you don't have your own independence, well, bottom line is, I was always taught as a kid, my mother used to always say, you live under my roof, you live by my rules. If you don't like it, you got to change your situation and get out, okay? You have to change it and get out. Now, if you're not in that situation and you're not financially independent and you still have to live with family, then it's up to you to find an intelligent way of how you could still practice your path, but not create the conflict with family. I'm sorry, that's just the reality. Getting into an argument and a fight is a complete waste of time. But the best way to combat it is by your example. So they may not agree with your spiritual practices, your spiritual approach, or what you have accepted as knowledge. But if they look at you and you're a productive individual, if you have a career or profession, they see you're responsible, you're successful. If you're a family man or woman, you're taking care of your kids, your family, your example will silence all that. And they will respect you regardless if they agree with your spiritual practices or not. So your example is how you combat. People will say, well, what do I do? What do I do? Well, there's two things. If you're living in your family's house and you're getting into arguments and it's not a good situation, there's only two solutions. And there's no other way. You either become independent, get out on your own so you don't have to deal with that, or you set the example. Because bottom line is this, I tell my kids that, and I got a grown one and a little one. This is my house. You live by my rules. I don't give a shit if you like it or not. And that's what I was told. My parents told me that. They say, you want to do what the fuck you want to do? When you go out and go get your own place, pay for your own shit, you can do whatever the fuck you want when you're living in your own place, paying your own mortgage or your own rent. Hey, I can't argue against that, people. That's just the way it is. All right? So a little more history on the book of Enoch, and then we'll get into, all right? Hold on a second. I gotta go back here, skip. All right. How did that skip? That's crazy. Hold on 1 second. Hold on. All right, so let's consider. Enoch is recorded in the book of Genesis. Enoch walked with God and he was not, for God took him, right? And this is a funny story because the Bible says Enoch was, and he was taken up. I've heard different breakdowns on it. He was taken to the, I've heard religious people, well, there's different levels of heaven. He was taken to the third heaven, the fourth. The Bible doesn't say he was taken up. Doesn't say he died a physical death. A lot of occultists and spiritualists will tell you he was taken up in bodily form and was shown the mysteries of life and death, because there's nowhere you see recorded that he died a physical death. We can liken this to being in our existence now in astral traveling the astral and spiritual planes or realms and having our own experiences. It's the same thing. When one speeds up their vibration and frequency and becomes less dense, which alchemy teaches us in the alchemical formula, we're able to, as we say, astral travel. Now, remember this, astral travel, or the astral plane, which some people think is the end of all, or is the epiphany of obtaining spirituality. Remember, that is just the doorway, the opening to many spiritual realms, okay? It doesn't stop at the astral plane. Astral traveling is only the doorway, the opening. I hear so many people talk as if that's it. Once you're able to go take flight and astrally travel, you are now there. No, you are just entering, right? So we're seeing this, a lot of this information we're seeing that was given to Enoch came via his spiritual experiences. So let's continue on, all right? This entry, all right, he was taken to the third heaven, explains in his letter to the Hebrews that by faith Enoch was translated that he should not see death. So you see this, it confirms that. He was not found because God translated him. So he didn't die a physical death. The book of Hebrews confirms that, right? This entry into the divine presence may have lacked the drama of Elijah's ascent to heaven in a fiery chariot with the aid of a whirlwind, but it was just as final. Enoch was no more. Even so, he was cast as a long shadow, and his presence is felt not only in the three quite distinct versions of the book of Enoch, but also in angelology, right? A lot of people that work with angels and archangels. Now, I'm gonna be honest with you. I think that's a little more new agey. I don't really work with a lot of that stuff. When you get into the banishing ritual, the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram and using Raphael and all, if that's your cup of tea, that's your cup of tea. Again, as I said before, on this path, we don't try to banish anything. All energy is productive. It's a matter of knowing how to facilitate it, how to work with it, and how to utilize it. When you start classifying something as good or bad, subconsciously, whether you're aware of it or not, you're still in a religious frame of mind. It's only bad to you based on either how you're perceiving it, or how you were taught to perceive it, or how you indoctrinate it. So you can say, well, Brother Beniti, there's a lot of energy that is wicked, right? We hear that term, evil or aggressive. Yes, in its intensity, in its frequency, in its vibration. But it's your job as a black magician to manipulate that energy, to adjust it, to transition it to work in your favor. When you're making statements that it's beyond your control, and you're using terminology like it's evil, it's wicked, it's wrong, then you're not ready to work with this type of spirituality. You're not ready to work with this type of energy. Maybe you're more new age occulty, all right? So to a black adept, a black magician, a practitioner of the dark arts, all energy is productive. When you say things like demons and evil spirits, right? You're saying that from a programmed mind state of indoctrination through religion, okay? That's what you're doing. And when you do that, you put yourself in a mind frame that doesn't let you see clearly things for what they truly are. So we have to get rid of that particular way of thinking. Now, if it's hard for you to do that, then it's going to be a problem working on this path, because there might be some things that come off or appear to you as being wrong, according to your perception of what right or wrong is. But right or wrong is personal, it's perception. And I can't stress that enough. Because if you make a statement and say, that is wrong, it is evil, I don't agree with it, somebody can come right behind you and say, well, I completely disagree. That's not wrong or evil to me based on such and such. So it's basically, it's a matter of perception. Truth is personal. When somebody thinks they got a lock on the truth and their way and their methodology is the only truth, that's where they run into a wall. All right. Then it goes on to say, the book of Enoch, but also in angel, in Renaissance and later magic, the farther reaches of Freemasonry and in the fantastic realm of supposed extraterrestrial visitors. But who was Enoch? Whether we see him as a historical personality or as a purely mythical figure depends on how we choose to view the Bible. The details given in Genesis may be simply stated. Now, this is according to biblical history. And I want to keep that in mind. If you're just tuning in, you're getting in, I'm giving you this outline according to their theology and history. I want to make that clear. I am in no way, shape, or form passing this on as fact. So we're going to compare and do the analysis based on their historical data. So this is how you teach somebody when you're trying to correct this. Okay, I just want to make that clear. All right. Then it goes on to say, whether we see him as a historical personality or as a purely mythological figure depends on how we choose to view the Bible. The details given in Genesis may be simply stated. Enoch was a descendant of Adam, of the seventh generation of patriarchs by way of Seth. Notice Seth, right? We Cain, Abel. We see the story, the recurrent story of the evil and the good brother replaying itself out over and over in different cultures and history. Cain and Abel's story, Enki and Enlil, Set and Heru, right? Set and Osiris. I'm sorry. We see this story. What it was trying to show us is our dual nature, because it is that nonconformist nature that must rise up and slay the weaker self. That's what the Set Osiris story really represents. Don't get caught up in the literal aspect of it. Understand Heru, Osir in that story, Osir in this case, represents the lower self, the conformist self. That's what the Osirian cult's agenda was when they tried after the 21st, 22nd dynasty, when they tried to control Upper and Lower Egypt. They wanted people to conform to the teachings of the Osirian cult. Well, the Set cult decided they wasn't having it. They just were like, cool, you guys do your thing. We're not going to get down with all that religion and stricture and law. We're gonna stay on our path. And because they didn't care or didn't like the answer they received, then you started to see where the history was started. The Osirian cult rewrit some of the text. Set was demonized as some evil entity or some demonic devil-like religious being, all because simply due to the fact that he did not want to conform to the mainstream philosophy of the Osirian cult. So what it represents to us as Black adepts, magicians, whatever you want to call it. And when you see that image of the one body and the head of Set and the head of Heru on the one body, it represents the dual existence that we are made up of. It's the conformist self that gets us, the lower self, the Osiris self that gets us into the situations we're in, or the weaknesses that manifest via us. Now, there's also a healing aspect to that because it's more compassionate. There's more mercy. So there's a twofold sword to understanding that energy. So I'm not saying the Osiris energy is completely non-useful. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is when that's all you're focused on and everything is peace and love and shake hands and we must come together and unify as if that's an illusion. That's where it becomes bad. The other aspect that we're taught, the Set aspect,
what they say is the demonic self, the daemon, the higher self, the real self, that's the one that keeps you in check. That's the one that's always, anytime you're in disagreement with something, that's your set energy coming out. Anytime you have a difference of opinion to something, that's a different perspective coming from your higher intelligence. And that's the core essence of who you are. That is actually in what we call the deep, dark abyss of the subconscious mind. It's engulfed in darkness. And the only way to understand that black light or dark light is to go into that darkness so that intellect can truly emerge, so you can see it for what it is. When it's just life, light, and love and suppress everything, and that's just not a realistic approach. And this is why people get stuck like Chuck in these paths. So when we look at that symbol, Set and Heru, it represents within us, we need the dark and the light energies in harmony. And then the job for us as adepts is when, how, and why to facilitate. So there's going to be, and I'll give you an example this week. And I actually had a conversation with Raven about this. I've been doing a lot of, for the last 3 months, I've been doing a lot of very dark, intense work. And I got up a few days ago and my spirit made it clear I needed to focus on just some healing and some meditation and doing some mantras with frequencies and vibration for cellular repair, to regenerate my cells, to create healing in the mind and create healing in the body. In order to do that, you do need some of that aspect. I like to actually use Khonsu for that in ancient Egypt because he was a master healer. If you study or familiar with the deity Khonsu, you'll read in a lot of the history books, it was a tradition for a lot of the pharaohs and the wealthy people to keep an image of Khonsu in their home. And I always tell people in a lot of my clients when they're doing consultations, if you're a person that has a lot of ailments, it's good to have some type of image or likeness of Khonsu within your domain because he deals with healing, right? So we do work with that on this path, contrary to what people think. It's not all dark doom and gloom, but we know in order to understand the reality of what it really is, you must go into the darkness. It's not an option. That's the difference. All right, let me continue on with this. He was the father of the long-lived Methuselah and was taken by God at the age of 365 years. Now, be careful when you're reading this. You're reading the Bible and you say, some of these biblical characters, it says they lived to 700-800 years. What that's talking about, it's talking about their genealogy. It means their direct genealogy or bloodline. It doesn't mean all of them, because when we go into Genesis 6:4, what does it say? It says God's spirit should only dwell with man. It should only live physically for 120 years. So when you're reading those quotes that this person lived to 800 years, it's talking about their genealogy, their family line. We have to understand that. You have to go back into the Semitic language to get a clear breakdown of that. I have discussions with religious people. They literally think that these people lived to 700, 800, 900 years old. If you believe that these were literal characters, is what I'm saying. It's kind of comical. But anyway, all right. All right, then it goes on to say, today, I'm going to finish with this, and then I'm going to go into the early portions of the book of Enoch, Azazel and the Watchers. I want to make sure I get to that before it gets too late. So let me finish with this. I think we got a brief understanding the origin of the book of Enoch. We know who Enoch is when we correlate it to the mainstream biblical text. We have an understanding of its origins back into Ethiopia. We have an understanding of the languages, the text that it was written in. We also have an understanding that the Council of Nicaea and the religious scholars and theologians do not accept it as a legitimate book. But yet we get no basis why. When we could look at some of the mainstream text in the Bible, and they're far from legit because there's so many contradictions in them, it's ridiculous. We'd be here all night talking about it. But it's just simply due to the fact they just made the statement. It's not accepted as a valid book because it goes against the dogma that they've been promoting for thousands of years called religion. All right. So today, the Book of Enoch in all of its forms is consigned to the pseudepigrapha, those texts ascribed to exalted persons rather to their true authors, who are usually unknown, and which have been excluded from the canon, just like I was just saying, of the Old and New Testaments. It was not always so. So this wasn't always the case. So now if your next question is, was there ever a time where these texts were accepted as legit? Most definitely. Watch. Okay. Everything I've said now, you're going to get a little bit of a breakdown of it right from this book. All right. It was not always so. In the earliest Christian centuries, the Book of Enoch was held in great reverence by many of the church fathers, including Irenaeus, Origen, and Tertullian, even Jerome, who generally disapproved of the work, but looked upon Enoch as being one of the two witnesses in Revelations who ascended up into heaven as a cloud. But let me tell you, let's understand this. Who are the first ancient Christians to this day? Where were they? What's their basis? Well, we've all heard of the Coptic or Coptic Christians, or the Coptic Church. You'll see in ancient Egypt, where Christianity, ancient Christianity, or any of the sects in the East that practice what we know as the Maronite rite. You'll also see the Eastern Orthodox to an extent, and the Coptic or Coptic Christians. The word Coptic or Copt in Arabic means center, right? When you read in the Quran, there's a character called Al-Qubt, right? Al-Qubt means the center, the foundation. So they were called the Coptics or the Copts because if you look today and just do any research and compare how they practice ancient Christianity as opposed to how it's practiced mainstream in the West, it's totally different. They look at how Christianity is practiced in the West as an abomination. It's watered down. It's not authentic. It's a lot of man-made jargon. If you look at the liturgy of the Coptic or the Coptic Church, or any Eastern Rite church, it's very ritualistic. And I would suggest, if you never have, and I go occasionally because there's a more deeper science to it. If you've never attended an Eastern Orthodox liturgy, just go just for the experience. It's done in the majority of the service or the ritual or the mass is done in chants and mantras. The whole thing is recited in chants and mantras. They use incense. There's a lot of circumambulation around the altars. There's a lot of ritualistic gestures that you have to really pay attention to catch. There's a lot of icons used. So I think it's actually, in my opinion, and you don't have to have this big ego. People go, well, how can you practice black magic and go into a church? Very easy, because that's lesser of what I do. It's a beautiful thing. If you've never sat in, I just enjoy the frequencies and the vibrations of the chants, of the cantor. Usually it depends on which one you go to. They usually have a cantor in the back of the church, in addition to the priest, and it's kind of a responsorial thing with the priest, the cantor, and the congregation. It's very ritualistic in nature. And I'll tell you, the vibration and the frequency, if you focus on that, forget all the other stuff, because you can go, listen, an adept or a magician can go into any situation and adjust it and manipulate it in their favor. I actually get good vibes. So anytime if I do attend any type of church setting, it's usually an Eastern Orthodox rite. I would suggest, if nobody has ever experienced it, find one in your area. Just check it out. Check it out one Sunday. See what you get out of it. All right. So let me finish with this. By the end of the 4th century, however, the Book of Enoch was looked upon as a heretical and was condemned by the Orthodox. So now the powers that be decided this isn't legit. You get the point. So I'm not going to stay on that too much longer. I'm going to go into Azazel and the Watchers. So it's as easy as, look, they got a position, they got a title, that's a cardinal, they're a bishop. they're a theologian, and because they got some piece of paper from some theology school or some position of power, that gave them the right to decide what was legit and what wasn't. It's that simple. But it's hard to ignore when there's stuff in there that clarifies a lot of the contradictions in the books that they decided. And I'm going to go to one. Let me go find this section real quick here. There's more history I would like to do on this, but for the sake of time, I don't want to stay on it too long. I want to get into some of the actual text in the first chapter. Hold on, let me find it. All right, here we go. Oh no, where is it? God damn. Hold on. Okay, here we go. All right, so now we're gonna get a little bit into. We've also heard the term Semjaza, right, which we know as another aspect of the adversary. We're gonna see the coming of Azazel. That takes place in so many missing elements or pieces when you're reading the story in Genesis chapter 6, verse 4. Okay, doesn't tell you who these giants that came down to the earth, etc. What was that story was about? Who were they? Where did they come from? Why did they come down? It doesn't give you any of that. It just tells you they saw that the daughters of men were fair, and they came into them and bore children from these giants. The Hebrew word they use is Nephilim, the giants in the earth, right? That we read in Genesis 6. Who are they? Well, these are our watchers. We're going to talk a little bit about them now. So this is coming in chapter 6. We're going to start with chapter 6 in the book of Enoch. And it came to pass when the children of men had multiplied, that in those days were born unto them beautiful and comely daughters. So remember, this is now touching on Genesis chapter 6, verse 4. Hold on, I'm going to turn this ceiling fan on. Excuse me. All right. So it came to pass when the children of men had multiplied, that in those days were born unto them beautiful and comely daughters. And the angels, the children of heaven, saw and lusted after them, and said to one another, Come, let us choose wives from among the children of men, and beget us children. And Semjaza, who was the leader, said unto them. Now, we're going to talk about the conflict between Semjaza and Azazel. This is how it starts. This is the beginning, or what we know as the Watchers. Watch this. All right. And Semjaza, who was their leader, said unto them, I fear ye will not indeed agree to this deed, and I alone shall have to pay for the penalty of great sin. And they all answered him and said, Let us all swear an oath and bind ourselves by mutual imprecations not to abandon this plan, but to do this thing. Then swear they all together and bound themselves by mutual imprecations upon it. And they were all in 200 who descended in the days. So these are who you would know as your 200, what they call the fallen angels. Watch. Who descended in the days of Jared on the summit of Mount Hermon, and they called it Mount Hermon, because they had sworn and bound themselves by mutual imprecations upon it. And these were the names of the leaders. Pay attention here. Here's the names of some of your watchers now. Okay. Semiazaz, their leader, or Semjaza. Arakiba, Ramil, Koka, Biel, Tamiel, Ramiel, Danel, Ezekiel. Very similar to Ezekiel. Baraquiel, Azazel, Amaros, Batarael, Anael, Zakiel, Samapiel, Sataray, Toel, Jomajel, Sariel. These are the chiefs of tens. Okay. And all others together with them took upon themselves wives, and each those Each chose for himself one, and they began to go in into them, have sex with them, right? Theologians will try to debate this. No, there was a sexual act. Let's not, we don't even need to fuss and debate about it. The main mainstream biblical text makes that clear. I've heard people dance around this, give their interpretations. Oh no, what it mean? No, it mean they was fucking. All right, let's not sugarcoat it. Let's not try to, because that's, if you're spooked out and you're like, oh, if you're religious, oh, that's black spookiness. All right, they was boning. They saw some women, they look good, they was boning. They was getting their freak on. That's it. Let's not even sugarcoat it. And they taught them charms and enchantments and the cutting of roots and made them acquainted with plants. They were teaching them about magic and herbology, right? And they became pregnant and they bare great giants whose height was 3,000 ells. I don't know what you correlate that to in feet, who consumed all acquisitions of men. And when men could no longer sustain them, the giants turned against them and devoured mankind. And they began to sin against birds and beasts and reptiles and fish, and to devour one another's flesh and drink the blood. Then the earth laid accusation against the lawless ones. Chapter 8, the coming of Azazel. Okay. And Azazel taught men to make swords and knives and shields and breastplates, and made known to them the metals of the earth and the art of working them. Now ask yourself this. Who really taught the Levitical priesthood how to make that Levitical garb, those breastplates? I'm just saying, I'm putting something out there. Hopefully you dig deeper on it. Where did they get there? I know most people are going to say God, the biblical God. He showed them. Really? Are you really doing the research? Do you really know who Azazel is? And if you're religious, do you know how prominent Azazel is in the formulation of your Bible and your religious theology? Do you really know, when you're reading that Bible, a lot of the times when you think it's this mythological, monotheistic God speaking, it's Azazel. Most people don't know that. And I told people, you don't really know what that Bible is. Who's speaking in the third party? Who's narrating the first chapter of Genesis? Who's beneath the dark watery abyss, looking up and saying God's spirit roamed across the face of the deep? Who's speaking and narrating that? Where did they get that story from? What does it really mean? Because it's not God speaking. Because whether it's the Bible or the Quran, it's always speaking in the third party. All right. And so he told them to make breastplates and made known to them the metals of the earth and the art of working them, and bracelets and ornaments, and the use, of antimony, and the beautifying of the eyelids, and all kinds of costly stones and coloring tinctures. And there arose much, according to religion, much godlessness, meaning, watch. And they committed fornication, and they were led astray and became corrupt in all their ways. Semjaza taught enchantments and root cuttings. Amaros, the resolving of enchantments. Baraquiel taught astrology. Kokab. Now, so this is everything in the occult that religious people think is evil. Not right, not correct. Watch. Ezekiel, the knowledge of the clouds. Arachiel, the signs of the earth. This is the 10, the chief 10. Remember that. Shamsiel, the signs of the sun, and Sariel, the course of the moon. And as the men perished, they cried, and their cry went up to the heaven. Now we get the introduction of the archangels, right? I'm bringing this up because there's a lot of people on this path that mix this archangel shit with left-hand path and occult. And you have to be careful when you do that, because you hear me always say it's about understanding and knowing and facilitating the energy you're working with. I watched a lot of people create inner confusion within themselves because they start fucking around with this type of energy and they don't understand why certain things are happening, or lack of why they're not happening. So you have to be careful, because I hear there's so many people in the cult. Yeah, they work with Raphael and Michael, and cool. But be careful of what other energy you're mixing it with, because it's adverse. If you're working with Azazel, and you're bringing down or working with those two spirits, those are conflicting energies. Those are what they call warring spirits, warring energies. And when you unlock that within your psyche, that's what I mean when it's creating an inner conflict. So when you hear people, you hear spiritualists, elders, or priests saying, don't be careful when you work this path, working magic, because you can get fucked up. This is what it's talking about. Simply a lack of understanding or a lack of knowledge. Because remember I said earlier and many times before over many videos, it's all energy is productive. It's the who, when, where, why, and how on when to use it. But I watch people just take it and conglomerate it into a big ball of shit, and it creates confusion. All right. So then it goes on to say, and then Michael, Uriel, Raphael, and Gabriel looked down from heaven and saw much blood being shed upon the earth, and the lawlessness being wrought upon the earth. And they said to one another, the earth made without inhabitants cries, the voice of their crying up to the gates of heaven. And now to you, the holy ones of heaven, the souls of men make their suit, saying, bring our cause before the Most High. Right? Then this is where, and long story short, without reading this, you read this on your own because I could be reading this. It talks about how the battle began on the earth, the what we know. Remember, when it talks about the term Armageddon, right? It talks about now there's a struggle for authority and power. Now, when these beings came down, right, according to the theology, then we start seeing the establishment of religious law, etc. We know how that branched out later on. Long story short, without keeping it too long for the sake of time. The point I wanted to draw out, wow, even when you're reading in chapter 6, when Shemjaza was warning them against this, Azazel was basically like, fuck that. We're going to do what we want to do, regardless of what comes along with it, but we'll take the responsibility of that. That's what we want to focus here. I don't want to get caught up. I'm not going to get caught up in the religious theology of it because a lot of that is religious, right? So we're not focusing on the thou shalt not doeth what thou doneth and dideth doneth and all that bullshit, right? We're focusing on the symbolic representation of Azazel. What is that symbolic representation in the book of Enoch and the watches, right? Now, there's another more, I don't know if you want to say more laid back aspect of the watches. Some will say the watchers intercede at points necessary in man's existence when a great situation needs to be adjusted or changed. Some say they can stop what we know falsely as time and restart it from where they stopped it, and nobody would even know the difference. Now, these are just theories. These are spiritual theories that have been circulating that are out there. So I'm saying this because when you do your research on the watches, you're going to get different perspectives on them. We work with the watchers. And then I'm going to go back traditionally to the Black Mass and the Enochian keys. I'm going to finish a little bit with that. We work with the watchers in the sense we are the watchers. Nobody's watching us. Nobody's keeping score of what we're doing and not doing. The watchers and Azazel, who basically was Shemjaza, who was supposed to be the leader. Azazel was like, come on, man. Why are you punking out now? This story represents to us as taking a stand for what one needs to do for themselves on this path and not worried about who thinks what, cares for what, or whatever. We're not concerned with that. Now, we know by making the conscious decision of coming on, and I like to use the term path of self-mastery, we know there's going to be a lot of flack with that. Because it's not a mainstream approach. It's not accepted as the norm because everybody else isn't doing it. All right? So you have to understand the burden that comes with that. And we know as we read on about Azazel, we know he was used as the scapegoat, right? Because the goat is synonymous. Azazel means the one removed. And you'll see they correlated the goat and Azazel. Yes, that comes later on down into the goat of Mendez, later in the occultic symbol of Baphomet, because we know what that represents. In essence, the goat of Baphomet and the symbol of Baphomet represents Azazel in a perfected state, taking on that perfected state, that perfected form, meaning nonconformist. One who is locked in to what we call the isolated consciousness. When something is isolated, it's separated from everything else, meaning separated from the conformist ways, separated from mainstream ideology, religions, dogmas, philosophies, and faiths. Now, it doesn't mean we can't draw upon them and utilize them in some shape, form, or fashion. We just don't succumb to them as the be-all, tell-all, all right? So what I'm going to do now, up until the 10 o'clock hour, I'll go through the chat and take some of your questions, comments, and we'll go through some of those. So give me a minute. Let me get a swig of water. I'm watching my boys wind down. They got a minute 30 left, trying to hold on to this 1-goal lead. Hopefully they can close this shit out. I don't want no more overtimes. So let me pause for a minute, see if I can watch the last minute, 20 seconds of this and not get distracted. Yeah, I got my Florida Panthers on the big screen right behind me. I got to watch it. Sorry, people. It's one of my weaknesses, sports. Keep telling you that. I have an open goal. Yes, we got the open goal. We just did it. Scored an empty net goal. It's a good game. All right, so some questions and comments. I'm going to go to the top of the chat. So if you type something in recent, it's not that I'm ignoring you. I'm going to start from the top to be fair to those that started typing earlier. All right, peace and greetings to everybody to get that out of the way. Let me look for questions and comments. What we got? Mama Muerte, midget strippers. Yes, Sister Patra, we will see you Thursday. Actually, you're getting in on Thursday. Yeah, looking forward. Sister Maya, I know you're going to be helping us. I know Raven already told you that, but you're going to be helping us. You're going to be working this one. You're at that stage. All right, Sabrina Gilbert. Peace, Sister Sabrina. Hope all is well. Brother Bemini, are you familiar with the language of numbers? Need a consultation soon. Yes, to an extent. Numbers and astrology. I work more so with numbers. If you've ever done a reading with me, and anybody that's done a reading with me, when I'm done, I take all your numbers. Everything that's pulled has a number affiliated with it, and I give you the breakdown of the numbers. So I do work a lot with numbers, and the numbers do signify something, especially when you do a spiritual reading with me. If we're pulling goetic demons, if we're doing an Orishi reading or a rune reading, yes, I tally all your numbers up and I break them down to you. And usually when you're doing a reading, you will find that there is a specific number that dominates the reading for a specific purpose. And if you've never done a reading with me, I explain that to you. This is the number. This is what it means. This is why it's coming up. And this is what it's significant with. So I do work more with the numbers, yes, because the numbers speak or communicate messages simultaneously. Astrology, not as much. Now, when I'm working, especially, I will let everybody, like if you're doing a reading with me and we're working with the certain spirits, I will tell you the astrological sign they rule and what they govern, etc. Yeah, I will do that to that extent. But yes, numbers I do. So contact me, get at me. I know we haven't talked in a while, and I know you got a lot of change and things been going on in the last year or so in your life. But we'll talk. Just hit me up. Mama Muerte, thank you for the donation. Greatly appreciated. Ritual Spirit. All right, here's a question. Yeah, please, as you see, Raven, type questions in caps if you could, or like Ritual Spirit did. Put question in cap. That's even a good way to do it too. Just write the word question in caps. It stands out. I can see it. Is it possible when working with ancestors, spirits, etc., that they may not like a particular person in your life and they warn to sever ties or warn you about the person, or even place obstacles or huge signs as a warning when with them? For instance, they are not beneficial for your development. Most definitely, yes. Happens a lot. As I've said many times before, when you're doing ancestral work, you must do your due diligence. Not all your ancestors are here in a productive way for you. Let's keep it real. Some could have been murderers, killers, rapists, criminals, thieves, con artists. And some of them are looking for a gateway to get back into this realm because they're still attracted to the physical. They haven't made the transition, especially ancestral spirits, what we would term that are in limbo. Usually there's some traumatic event that happened where they get stamped in time, where they have not been able to make the transition back into what we call an etheric form, an energy form. So they are what we would know in the occult as disembodied spirits. This is why you'll see some people who claim to be ghost hunters. They'll say there's a person that died in this house, or they had an accident at this intersection, and the same time and date every year that they had the accident, they see an apparition of that person at the corner where they got into that accident. That's usually because that person got stamped in time. The trauma, it was so sudden, and they were not able to leave here because they feel there's more they need to get done, good or bad. So sometimes those disembodied spirits can be our ancestors, and they try to find a doorway back in to finish the work that's keeping them trapped here. And most definitely, they can utilize you as a vehicle if you don't know what the fuck you're doing. Now, as far as somebody being in your life that may not be productive around you and they might be trying to get you to sever ties, that usually is an ancestral spirit guide. Let me give you an example. I've done so many consultations for females that have a male Congo ancestral spirit guide, and they are very protective of females. If anybody is in their life that does them wrong, or anybody is around them, it's like almost they look at that woman as, to an extent, they're in a relationship with. And usually the woman has succubus experiences with that spirit. They might find that the spirit tries to have sex with them when they sleep at night. It could be that intense. This is fact to certain people that have experienced. I'm not telling you to accept this. If you haven't experienced it, it's just theory to you. So I'm not telling you to accept it if you haven't experienced it, but it's an excellent question by Ritual Spirit. Yes, now we're talking of things on a spiritual nature. So you're not going to find the explanations to all this in some book written somewhere. I'm telling you this, not just from my accounts, I'm telling you this from other people's accounts. Okay? I deal with this all the time in consultations. This is a very normal thing. So yeah, to answer to your question, most definitely. So the next question would be, how do I go about creating harmony with that spirit? Well, ignoring it or resisting it obviously creates more persistence. You would have to make the adjustment. And if you feel like there's a spirit that's trying to sever ties with somebody in your life, if that person cannot adjust to what's beneficial for you, if you can't resolve it that way by having a discussion or making changes and adjustments where you can repair that, then that person, unfortunately, is going to have to go. Now, whether you do it voluntarily, it's going to get to the point where it don't really have anything to do with the spirit. The spirit, what the spirit is doing is awakening the awareness in you, trying to show you that that's not good for you. And the more you resist it, the more it's going to just grow stronger and stronger, create more conflict, create more problem. That's the way you need to look at it. So it's not a bad thing. It's actually a very good thing. The thing is, take heed. So if you've done everything, if that's going on in your life and you've done everything to try to repair that and fix it honestly, and you put a genuine effort, if it's not working, I'm not going to bullshit and sugarcoat it for you. It's time to part ways. It's time to do what you got to do. If you feel like you've gone to every length to try to fix it, make it work. And we know it's a two-way street when it comes to things like that. It can't just be you. It's got to be the other party too. You got to meet in the halfway. There has to be some level of compromise. But spirits will do that. And that's why I laugh. And that's why I don't, it's not ancestral worship. It's propagating your ancestors. Why do we connect with our ancestors? To awaken the DNA within us that they're connected to give us the awareness on our spiritual path. That's different than opposed to worshiping. We're not worshiping our ancestors. Get that out of your head. I hate that term, ancestral worship, because it's religious. You can't worship what you are. That's your blood. That's your DNA. You are them, they are you. So what the fuck are you worshiping? It doesn't make sense. Now, if you want to get into tradition, I get it. Well, in African spirituality, but that's tradition. If you're into that, that's your thing. On this path, we don't worship our ancestors. We propagate our ancestors. We acknowledge them. We activate them within our DNA to give us the inner awareness, to give us the knowledge, to assist us on our spiritual journey, to use them as a communication vessel and tool for spiritual growth. I know that's why I work with my ancestors. I don't worry about trickster spirits. I get this email all the time. Oh, I think they do exist. We know them as specters. Specters can feed off of your subconscious mind. They can appear, whatever you're thinking, they can appear. If you're thinking of your grandmother, they can physically appear as your grandmother and create a holographic image, and you think you're communicating to your grandmother. But if you're linked in and connected, you'll know it's deceptive. But if you're really linked in connected, they won't even attempt to get at you because they know you're firm in what you're doing. I don't really have issues with that. Not because I'm perfect, not because I don't have problems. I have problems and issues just like everybody else. I got bullshit I got to deal with within myself just like everybody else. I'm no different. Okay? I am no different. I don't know who that, I greatly appreciate that donation. I'll look down. I see it at the top. That donation, I'll look down. I greatly appreciate it. I'm no different, but the point being is we don't worship them. Okay, get that out of your head. I can access, and I'm not going to get into personal experiences. You know, I don't do that in video. Anytime, as I'm sitting here looking, I have my little shrine right there with my mother and my father. Anytime I want to go to my altar and have a conversation with my mother or father, I can do that. But I do it because I might have an issue or a question, and I want to get my father's perspective on it or my mother's perspective. So I have a conversation with them like I'm talking with you on the video right now. That's how I work with my ancestors. Not, oh, thou great ancestors, you know, pouring libation. I don't do any of that shit. That's tradition. And I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with it. I'm just saying I don't work with it like that. And when people contact me about traditional things, been there, done that, got the t-shirt, I've moved on. I communicate with my ancestors like that. I literally say, Mom, I got something I want to talk to you about. I'm getting ready to make this business decision. I'm a little conflicted. Should I do this or that? Give me some insight on that. And I will hear the voice of my mother give me clear advice. This is what you should do, son, such and such, such and such. That's a link that I've established through my work. Is everybody gonna have the same method? No, I'm not saying that everybody's gonna do it and it's gonna be the same way like me, but establish your own personal link, however that may be. Get rid of all that traditional shit, chuck it out the window. And if you feel guilty because you're not conforming to it, then stay in religion. Stay into the new age fluffy shit, whatever it is you do. That's your path, all right? Okay, that's Rosa. I see. I just hit the link. Thank you, Rosa. Just hit the link. All right. But it's an excellent question by Ritual Spirit. Excellent question. Yeah. A Blade of Astarth. Good concept. Kind of tired of right-hand path people watering down classically draconian and left-hand path gods to make themselves feel better about working in the dark. I agree. And again, Hecate is one of those goddesses. There's a very new age Wiccan earth magic aspect of Hecate. And before I got on this path, that was the aspect that I was familiar with, and I didn't vibe with it. Same thing with Lilith. There's a very new agey aspect of Lilith, the mother goddess. And she is a goddess. But when you work with Lilith, however you want to pronounce it, I know people always, there's a very intense, and the Lilith class that I will be doing on November 2nd, the private class, for those that signed up, I'm going to go into detailed aspects. Lilith does not respond to everybody, people. Trust me when I tell you that. And I'm telling you this, not just me, people that have been on the path and do work will tell you that. And it's very easy to decipher whether you're working with Lilith or not. I know some people think they are, but they're not. Trust me when I tell you. You have to really do something worth noting to get that portion of the psyche activated, to get the awareness and the results. We're going to talk about that in the class via sigils, activating those sigils, ritualistic practices, things of that nature. So what I'm going to show you in step-by-step methodologies and practices if you're sincere and want to work with the energy, and it's not for everybody. And I'll tell you this, once you open this gate to Lilith, you can't close it, okay? And I say you can't close it because it's an energy that will be there in some shape, form, or fashion, whether you intentionally activate it or not, it will be there. That's the difference with working with the Citra Aqua, the other side, the Klipothic. That's the difference. It's not for everybody. And it's okay if it's not for you. But I don't want to say that to scare you. It's a beautiful thing when you're polished in the fire. But I agree. They'll take a lot of these left-hand path principles, the draconian gods, and as I said many times before, that is probably one of, or my main path. I work the draconian path, and I use a lot of the left-hand path gods and goddesses in the draconian form. The dragon energy, the Lucifer energy is no joke. It's working with the real Kundalini. There's new age fluffy Kundalini. Tantra is, don't confuse Kundalini left-hand path sex magic with Tantra. It's not the same thing. And that shit can be painful. It can be very painful, emotional. When I mean painful, I'm not just talking physically. It's very emotional. I just came out of 3 months worth of work. Beat me down. I'm talking about it gave me physical illnesses. That's how much energy it took from me. Gave me colds, flus, physical body breakdowns, complete exhaustion, sleep deprivation. This is what I'm trying to tell you when you activate the energy. It's okay because that's just some of the effects are part of the process. But guess how I feel now that it's done complete? I feel superhuman. I feel rejuvenated. I needed to go into that to get to this, okay? So it's not always pleasant. And this is why I laugh when people say, yeah, you know, I'm working with Lilith. Oh, shit. You ain't working with Lilith, because when Lilith takes that hand out from the deep, dark abyss and sucks you in through the Citra Aqua, through the other side, you better be ready. You about to get to the real you. You about to unlock some painful emotional shit. And you about to get a reality check about yourself. And you're going to find out you ain't the hot shit you thought you were. You're going to find out you don't really know what you thought you knew, or you thought you knew a little something, really was nothing. Because remember, Lilith reaches out to those that show a hunger and a lust and a thirst for knowledge. See, everybody always correlates the aspect of lust to Lilith through sexual energy. That's only a small part, people. That, in essence, is not what Lilith really is looking for, even though you can activate her energy through sex magic and sexual energy, and we're going to talk about that in the class. But she looks, those who lust after her, because they're seeking the desire of knowledge of self, that's who she pulls through the Citra Aqua, through the other side. When she sees the individual is ready, it's time for them to know who they really are. It's time for them to face the real self. That's real shadow work, people. Not this, embrace your lower self. Peace and love. No, it's a little deeper than that. But that's a very good question. Very good question. All right. And very good comment by Blade of Astarth. Watering it down. And it's part of it. It happens. All right. What else we got? Ross 1. Enoch was Ethiopian, Black African, and Semitic. That's why the Europeans took the book out of the Bible. It's also pre-Genesis. True. And we know a lot of, as I said, when you go back to the Hamandawas and the Philistines of Ethiopia, we know a lot of it has its origins in Africa, Ethiopia, ancient Egypt. And we know Western Christianity watered it down. That's what I'm saying. And when you go amongst the Coptics or the Coptics, they're going to give you a whole different breakdown. What we have gotten here in the West is so watered down, it's not even close to some of the original manuscripts, the texts, the languages, the characters, the people, the culture, the way of life. We've talked about that many times before, but that's a good point. All right. What else we got? Brother Gene Butler, what's going on, brother? Good to see you. Ichiro Uzumaki. Wow, shake my head. Ignore the fool. Yeah, oh, that was earlier. That was the troll fool we had in here. Hey, you know, like I said, it's funny. You get people that have nothing better to do. I'd be damned if I go on somebody's YouTube channel and because I don't like the content they're talking about or the person, I got too many important things to do than waste my time and energy spending my time on somebody else's channel trolling or criticizing what they're saying. It's just simple. You don't like it, just don't watch the channel. That's what I do. If I don't like something, I just don't watch it. And whether I agree with what the person is saying or not, I don't fucking bother with it, you know. Like I watch a lot of other channels. I might, Sonetta, for example. There's a lot of shit on there on Sonetta I think is pointless and it's religious and a waste of time. But then there's some other things on there that I can sit and listen to. Any channel. So I focus more on what I can get. If I can't get anything out of it, I'd be damned if I waste my time. But that's people, you know, people like that have no life. You know, just straight haters. Probably as a person who sleeps on his mother's couch. Probably he or she don't get no, you know, have no sex life, nothing, you know. Ain't got a pot to piss in, you know. Just miserable people, unsuccessful, broke ass people. And not just financial wise, mental, emotionally, and spiritually. But anyway, what else we got here? And that's true. Comment by Ichiro Uzumaki. Hardcore Christians tend to reject these facts, even when they're easily researchable. Yeah. Look, when you got tunnel vision, and unfortunately, look, I know a lot of people that are religious. They're good people, and there are some religious people that you can have and I have friends that are Christians. They're good people. We can have a mature conversation and agree to disagree and just walk away agreeing to disagree. I could deal with that. So I'm not going to say all, but there are a lot of people, as you're describing, Ichigo, that no matter, you could smack them upside the head with the truth and they're not going to even accept it because they have tunnel vision. You got to understand when you've been taught something from a very early age, from a young child to a teenager to an adult and then an old age, you know, it's that old saying, you can't teach an old dog new tricks sometimes. And that's, unfortunately, it's pointless to argue. It's pointless you can't force something on somebody. If they don't accept it, they just don't accept it. It doesn't change anything you do. But the reality is those people do exist. You're right. All right, next question. Amelia Gallardo. I may be ahead or behind. Excuse me, I apologize. I may be ahead or behind. Did you already talk about Azazel? Okay, you must have typed this in earlier. Yeah. Then she goes on to say, my only reference is from EA coding. I enjoy cross-reference and info. That's great. You should. I suggest that. Richard K. Page, who is a Luciferian and author that I've had on, he always suggests that you should always cross-reference it. You should always cross-reference, get different perspectives on any of these topics, even stuff that I talk about here. There's going to be multitude. That's why in the beginning of the video, I was trying to go over there's different perspectives alone on the book of Enoch and who Enoch was and who Azazel is and the Watchers are. You definitely should cross-reference. But my focus, again, is bringing this out from a left-hand path self-mastery perspective. That's how we should utilize this system. And let me touch real quick. I want to go back. If the black mass, if anybody has studied LaVey's Satanic Bible, if anybody has studied LaVey's the Satanic Rituals, the companion to the Satanic Bible, you know that the Enochian keys are used in those rituals, the black mass specifically, and can be used in other rituals. And the Enochian keys can be used as a magical tool when working. And then there are some people that work a system called Enochian magic, which is not really, in my opinion, I wouldn't really fully label it left-hand path or dark magic. In my opinion, it would be considered like high magic, what one would call, it's not Wiccan or earth magic, and it's not dark or black magic. It would be in between. It's kind of like what we would call high magic. So you should cross-reference all those different perspectives, and you should do that so you can figure out if you do want to use Enochian magic, the Book of Enoch, Azazel, and the concept of the Watchers, because I could create a whole ritual out of this. If I read this story, you could take the names of the chief 10, and you could create a ritual out of this based on how you see fit. You can utilize it on your path. So that's what I'm trying to draw out. That's my point of going over these topics. Okay. All right. What else we got? Yeah. Yeah, Mandel Born. Let me read his comment. They say in Ethiopia, yeah, there's a priest who basically stays there. That's his duty. He guards it. He stays there until there's that theory. Then there's these other rumors. The Knights of Templar have the Ark of the Covenant. But you could pull up a lot of documentaries on the Colossians and the Ark of the Covenant and see what Mandela Bourne is talking about. So, yeah. And again, how do we look at it? Again, in one of my sessions, and I plan on doing that session probably one of the sessions next year. I did it, I believe, a couple sessions back, the occult and metaphysical breakdown of the Bible and the Quran. We do look at those books, and it can be used as tools when looked at from an occult and a magical perspective, right? And those that know me, that I've been teaching for many years, and I say this with confidence, not arrogance, I know that Bible and Quran better than Christians, Muslims, and Jews know it. I can go front to cover. I can go book to book from beginning to end. Trust me when I tell you. And those that really know me, and I know some of you in here right now do, some of you might be new, so I'm not talking out my ass. When it comes to this subject, it's something that I was reared in years ago before I got on this path. So I have a lot of experience when it comes to biblical and Quranic information. All right. And it's something that I had to dissect to get to where I'm at now because it was a stumbling block. All right. But anyway, William Thomas, I love your channel, bro. Appreciate it. Thank you for tuning in. And if there's any new listeners in here, or listeners I may not be aware of, William may not be new, or others, but if there are any first-time listeners in here, welcome. But just if you stumbled across the channel by accident, it is an occult, metaphysical, left-hand path, dark magic. These are the topics we talk about. So if that's not your cup of tea, it's probably not the channel for you. I'm not really concerned with likes and dislikes. That's personal. My objective is I just discuss information related to these topics. And you do with it what you like. Love it, like it, hate it, leave it, take it, whatever you want to do. I'm not really concerned. That's personal. So welcome any first time or new listeners. Hopefully this is not just your first time here. Hopefully we see you again. All right, what else we got? Get through the rest of these questions. Yeah, as Ross one says, because of the energy from the ark, they usually say the guard that guards it, usually over a long period of time, gets defects from it. Oh, Mandela Born, cool. I know you travel back and forth to Ethiopia. Definitely link before you leave. Yeah, see, when you go, man, see if you can get me some type of Ethiopian relic I can put on my altar, man. Something to connect with it. But definitely link me before you go, because I know I know you travel back and forth, and I know you got business dealings there and stuff. But have a safe trip. But we'll talk. Keona Living, thank you again for the donation. Yeah, and that's true. Another good comment by Ross One. They say that fallen angels brought/taught spiritualism to men. Oni, that's exactly why I love Beniti. He keeps it real. Thank you and welcome back. I know you've probably been busy. We haven't seen you in a while. Shout out to brother Jack. Jack, man, hit me up. Not sure if you're going to be able to slide through any of these days this weekend. I know we weren't sure, but give me a call or I'll give you a buzz tomorrow or before Friday. Give me a call. All right, what else we got? Yeah, and remind, as Raven Heck is coming, fuckery free chat. We block you quick. You see, we don't waste time. And I know she got in a little after. If it's not me, Angel, you got that wrench too, brother. Just so you know, if you're still on listening, if you need to block somebody, I gave you the wrench. That's why you're lit up in blue. If you need to block somebody, go next to their name. You'll see 3 dots, and it just says remove person from the room. You can just take them out the room. All right. So I just want you to be aware of that. I gave you a wrench because you're in here a lot. If you go next to somebody's name, just hit hide user on this channel. It takes them out of the room. So I gave you the wrench too, so you could do that. Because sometimes I can't watch the screen. I know my V's got a wrench, Raven, and Angel. So you guys are moderators. You can axe anybody out of the room. And if you're not familiar how to do it, Angel, you won't see the 3 dots unless you scroll next to that person's name. Okay? So yeah, we don't waste our time with that. Like I said, man, you ain't got no fucking life. Yeah, go somewhere else. Nobody got time for that nonsense. All right, Patrick says, I work with archangels, but just like anything else, they have a dark side. They do. And when you're working with the watchers and the archangels that come into play via the book of Enoch, you just got, if you're working with it, and I'm sure you are familiar with it if you work with it, and now I'm speaking to everybody abroad, just know what you're working with. It's very important. Okay? Very important. Whew. All right, what else we got? Yeah, again, a reminder, please hit the like button. The like button expands the channel on a wider platform on YouTube. It reaches more people. The more likes the videos get, the more people will come across the channel, and that's what we want. So please hit the like button. Greatly appreciated. And go to the channel, subscribe. Hit the notification bell, and you will get a notification anytime I do a live or anytime I upload a new video. All right. What else we got? Lovey Davis said, just wondering, I named my son Usir. Should I change his name? I know. Well, here's the thing. I'll answer that question based on this. What school of learning were you in when you gave your son that name? I'm going to say, obviously, you were heavily into Egyptology. Now, does the name, obviously we know who Osir is, does the name hold significance to him? Because remember, when you take a spiritual name, you should have the characteristics of what the name means. It should define some shape, form, or fashion your personality, and you should be able to live up to that name. Now, there's 2 ways you can do this. As you go through different levels or schools of learning, your name can change or transition, or you can add on to an existing name. Like, let me give you an example with me. I probably had, and I always say this, Brother Yehuda still calls me Hafuz, which is an Arabic name, which means the guardian, right? No matter what name I've taken, he still will call me Hafuz. And it's not, he does it on purpose. It's just, it stays with him and sticks with him and it resonates. Your name should signify also where you are at in your level of learning. So, I mean, I went from Abdul Ghaffar Muhammad in Islam when I first was in Islam, which means servant of the forgiver of Allah, right? Then it went from that to Yasar. Then it went from Yasar to Hafuz. Then it went from Hafuz to Kanun. Then it went from Kanun, etc. The list goes on and on and on. Then it went from, well, you have a magical name, which nobody should know. Only that's something you work in the sacred temple. But your sacred name is not a physical name. It's a name that unlocks the very essence of your being through tone, frequency, and vibration. It's a name that is vibrated. That's getting into a whole nother story ritualistically. But the name you carry spiritually that everybody knows you by. So if you're on if you've evolved further on the path, it's not necessarily you have to change your son's name. You could probably add something before it or after it if he's evolved. If the name is suitable and it still applies, you could also just leave it as is. So don't feel like you're obligated that you have to change the name. But if you feel like he has outgrown it and evolved and has transitioned completely into something else, then I would suggest you change it. Because that name, remember, a name reverberates tones. So anytime you say that name, you are activating the tone in that name and everything that's connected to it. So if that energy is not still acclimated with your son and he's kind of evolved, now it'll always be a part of his core inner being, but if he's evolved a little bit beyond it, yes, it's time to change the name. That's why we change the name. That question comes up a lot. How do you choose a spiritual name? Why do names change? Sometimes elders or teachers or guides give it to you, and some names were given to me. They weren't chosen. But after I bypassed all those different levels of learning, the name that I currently use is a name I selected. Beniti just means teacher, right? It's a combination of Syriac, Lebanese, some of the ancient language. So actually the full name it's actually Beniti Atun Ray, teacher of the hidden one, right? But now there's something added, changed into it, which I won't say openly. And then there is a sacred name that I only use in the temple when we do rituals, and that stays in the temple. You don't use that outside of the temple. Nobody knows that name, and it stays in the temple. And out of respect, you don't use anybody else's name. You create your own magical personality. That's ritualistically. So there's the name you're known by, and then there's the sacred name ritualistically. You work in the temple, and then there's the hidden name that unlocks the true essence of you that's revealed to you over time through your ritualistic work. That's a whole nother story and breakdown. That would be a whole class in itself. So it is important. And I always tell people, when you take names you're known by, don't just select names because you like it, because it's cool, it's the end thing, it's trendy. You got to be able to live up to that name. All right, so hopefully that helps you out. But Lovey, you don't have to get down on yourself. He was probably in that level of learning when you chose the name. I couldn't say if your son carries that Osiris energy. He could have at one time, but again, as I said, if he's advanced and transitioned to a different level of learning and understanding and a different mental capacity, and he's on a different vibe and frequency, he could carry the set energy just as much. And maybe it just wasn't brought out at that particular time. So it just depends. But the thing is, we always have both within us at all times. It's just we gravitate when we don't have the full awareness and fully understand the harmony of both. We just tend to gravitate to one more than the other. That's where the problem comes in. Okay. All right, what else we got? questions. Yes, good comment. I like the Book of Enoch too, Tamika Fryer. I'm into that type of stuff. I like mysticism. I actually first learned about the Book of Enoch years back in Freemasonry. It's a book that Freemasons study. The lodge that I came up with, I was fortunate on Thursday nights, which they still have. And again, I don't go to the Masonic lodge probably maybe just a few times a year now. But at the time when I was really into Masonry and I was going both meetings every month and I would go throughout the week, we had an esoterical society on Thursday evenings, and we had discussions on the Book of Enoch. So it's very prominent too amongst Masons. That's what I'm saying is, and as I can't remember who was earlier, I was talking about cross-referencing. It's good to do that. There's so many different takes on it. But again, my job in bringing this up tonight was more connected to Azazel, the Watchers, the Occult, and the Left-Hand Path. I mean, you can utilize it however you want. It is, and I agree with Tamika. It's a very it's interesting to me. Period. It's just something I've always found interesting. Anya. Okay, so you have experience with the Coptic or Eastern Orthodox. Yeah, as I was saying, a lot of similar. I would suggest it's a great experience. I'm always into that. I've over the years, and my wife always clowns me about it. She calls it church hopping. She says, "What are you doing? Going church hopping?" I like to just experience and visit other churches just to see the differences, the ritualistic practices. Even a Latin, if you've never experienced a full-blown Roman Catholic Latin Mass in Latin, but experience it in the full Latin, very ritualistic, in a traditional sense. But I would suggest, if nobody hasn't, what's always fascinated and draws me to the Eastern Orthodox Mass are the rituals, the symbols. They use a lot of incense. And it's done, the whole liturgy is pretty much chanted, like they call it cantor. It's pretty much chanted. And I can just get in there and I get locked in within my own personal self. I may not even be focused on what everybody's doing externally there. I'm there for other reasons, but I've gotten a lot out of it. I'm fortunate. I have one literally 2 blocks up from here. It's a small Eastern Orthodox church. And once in a while, maybe once every other month, I'll go and just sit in on the liturgy. So it's some good shit just for the energy and the vibe. It's different. And if you came up as a Christian or a Catholic, you should experience it. It'll give you a more ancient understanding of how some of the ancient Christians practiced it. It's totally different from what mainstream European Western Christianity teaches it. I actually enjoy it. All right. That's what Ritual Spirit says. I'm not going to lie. I tried to read the Book of Enoch a few times, but I still have difficulty decoding it completely. Yeah, there's a lot of symbolisms in there. So, it is a book you have to go back and reread. There are sections in there that are speaking in a metaphorical sense. So the symbolic sense, it's a very, metaphorical and symbolical book. So yes, it does take serious study. Just keep plugging away at it. Ritual Spirit says, I've gone into the cathedral in my city and listened to the monks chant as well. Yeah, that's you're going to laugh, right? Funny thing is, when I say I listen to music, I listen to all types of music. I love Gregorian chant music. I will sometimes go to sleep with that. And I also love Gregorian chorale. If you've never heard Gregorian, it's almost like, it's not Gregorian chant like the monks chant. It's, Sacred Treasures. If anybody has never seen a collection, just Google Sacred Treasures. If you have a music app, you can pull up all the albums on Amazon. I know has them all. I actually have the CDs from back in the day. I actually bought the CDs going back to the early 2000s. They put a series out. It's the traditional liturgy music from the Russian Orthodox churches, the Eastern Orthodox churches. But man, the sound of it, the frequency, the heart, man, it's some beautiful, beautiful music. So I've always incorporated Gregorian chant and Gregorian chorale music ritualistically, or I use it as literally as music to sleep to. Nice stuff. And you don't have to be Christian to listen to it. So get out of that. Don't feel guilty. Oh, should I do this? I feel guilty. Fuck out of here with that shit. I just listen to it because I like the way it sounds. It's got a very mystique or mystical energy to it. But Sacred Treasures, they put out, I believe, it's 5 or 6 different CDs that have come out over the years. I believe they're up to 6 now. The best one to me, I believe, is number 3, the Russian Orthodox one. The whole, it's their liturgy. Between the music and the choir, you feel like you're back in another. It's some fly shit. Check it out. That's all I can tell you. All right, what else we got? Yeah, they do. As Anya says, to Ritual Spirit, look up Orthodox monks on ponchos. They look like warlocks. They do. You'll see them wearing the black hooded robes. They actually look like wizards or warlocks. Their face is covered. There's the Jesuits. I mean, there's more, I guess, in the whole something else. But yes. All right. Okay, what else we got? I think we're pretty much at the end. All right, Ritual Spirit. Azazel sigil is the same sigil as Saturn. That is correct. And the same sigil for melanin. So to me, Azazel represents Saturnian dark energy. That's a very good point. And what I like what you did there, you took the symbolicism, you took different things it represents, and that's how you apply it to yourself. And that's beautiful. I can relate and connect to that. I could see that. But the beautiful thing is there, you did your own, this is how we work the path. You applied that symbolism to yourself. And that's what it is. And all that matters is that's what it is for you. It works for you. You perceived it like that, and it's effective. But yes, that's why I put that sigil. If you saw the advertisement for the video on Instagram, that is correct. The Saturnian energy is dark and chaotic in nature. We all know what that represents spiritually. We did a beautiful ritual here, very intense, even for myself, a few months back, the ritual of Azazel that we did down here, where we were opening up individually and collectively about things about ourselves that we had to repair and work on. The Azazel energy is no joke. It opens up the complete other side of yourself. That's the best way. Now, here's another thing, and I'll talk about that maybe another time. Azazel, when people say, what's a good left-hand path? You could, and I'm going to share that with some people down the road, something more. You can do a prosperity ritual for finances with Azazel. That's one of the best left-hand path spirits, deities, gods to work with when it comes to money and finances. Most people don't know that, though, or most people may not be aware of that. But there's certain things you got to do in that type of working or ritual. But I'll get into that another time. But yes, that's a good observation, Ritual Spirit. Good observation. Ras 1, Azazel is a Elohim. Yes. Remember, anytime you see, when you're reading those English translations of the Bible and you see the us, that's just plural for Elo, right? Elo in the Aramaic is the source, or what the Most High, El Elo, would be referred to. Now, phonetically, the word El Elo, Allah, sound very similar. Remember, Al in Arabic, Al is the definite article, and El in Hebrew, El. El Elo is the source. Elohim is plural for El Elo. So Azazel, yes, is one of the Elohim, one of the many Elohims, or the gods or the goddesses, right? When we're saying Yahweh, which is a very poor translation of Yahuwah, Hua, he who is, Yah Oh, he who is who he is. That's what Yahuwah means, is what was grafted from Yahuwah. You get Yahweh, which is a poor translation of Yahuwah, and then Jehovah, which is a really poor translation of, an even poorer translation of Yahweh into English. We know that can't be correct because there's no letter J in the Hebrew alphabet. So the word Jehovah is not really an actually title. Then you get also what you'll hear modern day Jews refer to El Elo as Hashem, which means the name, because they believe nobody really knows the name of the creator. So they just say Hashem, the name, right? So when you're seeing all these terminologies, remember, Yahweh just means Yah, good, way, good, agreeable, and disagreeable. So even when they're saying Yahweh, they're saying God has the dual nature. So you could correlate good and bad to light and dark. It's the same thing with us. We all are Yahwehans in the sense that we have that dark and light energy residing within us at all times. The goal and the challenge is, how do we work with it in harmony? You are Yahweh. When you break it down in its essence, you are Yahweh. Because you embody darkness and light simultaneously. And who came and was the personification of that? Lucifer, the light bearer. The only one of the Elohim that embodied light and darkness simultaneously. That's why he is looked at as one of the patriarchs or one of the chief deities on this path. And he personifies in one of the many forms of the adversary. That's one. Set is the other. Samael is another. Because he has different functionings in the form of the adversary. Takes on different aspects, different functions. It's all the same, but yet different. I know that sounds crazy, but you understand this as you go down the path. So the Lucifer energy gives you the understanding of how to harmonize. Our working that we will be doing in New York City in March with the Black Flame 11 crew, shout out to Black Flame 11 crew, will be centered around the Lucifer energy. We're about to open up a gate with that. That's going to be our first full-blown indoor working, but we'll talk about that as we get closer to March. Right now, we focus in on this weekend. Let me see. I think we're done. All right. Wait, skipped on me. Hold on. Where we go? Damn, this thing skipped like a motherfucker. Hold on. Give me 1 second. Shit. Holy shit. I didn't know all this stuff was on here. Hold on. Okay, here we go. This is where all right, let me see what else I missed here. Yeah, the book of that's a good point by Sister Oni. Anna Rivers' book is a classic. It's a thin book, but it has a bunch of sigils in there. Lovey Davis. I mean, yeah, what watcher that was in your experience? It could have been a host of them. It's hard to tell. Amelia, I have not read E.A. Coding's book on Azazel, so I can't speak on it. So I wouldn't be able to give you an honest criticism of it. When you're looking at Azazel, remember, archetype is not limited just to a deity. Archetype can be a spiritual system. It could be a blueprint, a format. It's not just likened to what we know as a deity. So Azazel is both. It is an archetype because it falls under the function, the type of character type or archetype it is. It's a spirit. Yes. And I've done videos in the past. There's a confusion between spirits, ancestral spirits or spirit guides, archetypes, or deity gods and goddesses. People think they're all the same. But the key thing we have to understand, they're activated by our psyche. We have to activate them within, because as it says in the 7 Hermetic Principles, all is mental, mental is all, the universe is mental. So one must go within the mind to activate and connect with them, regardless if we're having what we're terming experiencing external connections with these spirits or energies or deities or archetypes. They're activated within the subconscious mind. So yes, it would be classified as a spirit, okay? An energy, which is even a more broader term. And it's a very powerful spirit. And it's something you definitely need to be educated to work with. I don't suggest you fuck with it. I'm not saying you, I'm just speaking in general. Do your due diligence. And Azazel will usually come ritualistically. He speaks in whispers. Not like Canas. I know Canas is the whisperer. But you know when it's Azazel. You know when you unlock that portion of your psyche and you are now open to be receptive to that communication, you know what's speaking. And he usually comes as a spirit to give guidance, to give suggestions, to guide you down the path that you're on. It's the best way I can describe it. Man, you guys talking about peanut butter and chocolate chip cookies. Got me hungry now. Damn. Brother B, I appreciate the bill. I just bought the book of Enoch and a lackluster film. Can you provide ideas on how to avoid the trick knowledge in the left-hand path? Yes, I just did a video. Look, recently I did 2 videos on conscious pimps, how, who are they, how to recognize them. And I did another video, beware of occult spiritualists, occultists, hustlers, and pimps. It's very easy. It's very easy. The trick knowledge is when it becomes an agenda. Okay? That's when it becomes trick knowledge. So step one is stay away from people that are always trying to either con you or hustle you for money. That's usually step side one. Or that take the information and put their spin on it and tell you that this is the only way you should accept it, as if they have a complete lock on what that information is about. That's when it becomes trick knowledge. And I've said day one in my videos, I'm not saying that my breakdown of any of these topics is the tell-all be-all. I can only break it down from my perspective and experience. And of course, in that perspective and experience, there's many things some will resonate with and agree with. There's many things some will not. They'll be in total disagreements. There's many that some may not be familiar with it and they'll have to do further research. That's why I said I just put the information out there. So to avoid the trick knowledge, deal with those, whether it's in books, authors, or people that are just putting the information out there. They're not telling you how you should perceive it, that you should. And here's another sign, and I said this in the video. Watch out for motherfuckers that are always trying to pump in their videos that they talk to spirits all the time and they're special, they're chosen. And that's usually a red flag to me because they have an agenda. Because they're usually trying to stamp in your mind that they're better than you, that they're superior. And then they're usually following that up with something they're trying to sell you. It's coming. And then they try to make you feel like you're dependent on them to know. And they try to create the illusion that they know something that you don't. And I told you guys a million times before, the biggest secret or the greatest secret of mystery is there is no secret of mystery. But the illusion is if I can create the illusion that I know something you don't know, then I can keep you controlled. So these are tips. This is how you avoid the trick knowledge. When you run into people or even authors, don't even have to be people. You could read books and see sometimes authors will come off like that, like, oh, I'm the authority on this. Like I'm the chief authority on this. So anybody that's blocking you, anybody that tells you don't listen to that, don't read that, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that, that's a red flag. You make that decision for yourself. Don't let nobody make that decision for you. I'm not going to tell, nobody's going to tell me what I should read, not read, or who I should or should not listen to. I'll make that decision for myself. If it's some bullshit that I'm not feeling, I just won't vibe with it. I just leave it alone. So these are signs. And most importantly, if you're dealing with left-hand path knowledge and you're not getting no results, that's another sign that it's not the right shit. One, either you're not doing something right, or two, it's not being given to you correctly in the sense that you can apply it for self to make it work. The difference, as I said in those videos, and I'll reflect back, the difference of what I do and what other people do is I show you how to do it for yourself. People don't like that because it takes money out of their pocket. Then you don't need to go to such and such priest or such and such babalawo and spend $2,000 to do some stupid ass shit you could do for yourself. So I'm going to show you how to do it. When I do a spiritual reading or a consultation, whatever comes up in that, I'm going to give you the work, but I'm going to tell you how to gather that stuff. Do it for yourself. That's the difference. I don't say, okay, this came up in a reading or a consultation. In order to do this, all right, I'm going to do this ritual for you. You're going to have to pay me $1,000 to do it. No, I'm going to show you where you get the implements you need, the elementals you need, how to get the ritual, give you suggestions, but then always finish it up and tell you, but you need to add your own personal touch to it. Because when you put your personal stamp on it, it's totally different than somebody else doing it for yourself. Because think about this, when you're bringing somebody else in to do something for you, you don't really know that person's energy. And most times when people are coming in, how do you know they're not manipulating your energy to keep you under control? I always tell them, never let a motherfucker put their hands on your crown chakra. Never. Never. If you go to a spiritualist and the first thing they do is touch the top of your head, tell them to get the fuck away. Because that's usually somebody that knows how to, because remember, the doorway, you can bring walk-ins, the doorway or the core essence to getting to who you are is through that crown. And there are people, there are wizards, sorcerers, magicians that know how to open that crown. I don't ever let nobody, if I don't know you, never touch the top of my head. If you want to get punched the fuck out, if you want to get cold clocked in your jaw, never put your motherfucking hand on top of my head. That is one way you will get knocked the fuck out because of what I know can be done through that. And it could be something subtle. I don't know who the fuck you are or what you know, at least right out the gate. But I'm always cutting. Anybody that's touchy-feely around the head, get the fuck away from me. Don't touch my head. That is one way to get a black eye. It's one way to get knocked the fuck out. And I don't like that. I don't even like people standing over me when I'm sitting down. And I got my reasons for it. Because it goes a little deeper than that. But I don't even know why we were talking about this. But anyway, somebody asked some shit. I don't even know where it went. Anyway. All right, what else we got? Okay, only good that you buried it in. You finally got around to that feet in the earth. That's good. Lovey David, to me, telepathically, and it said I am only a while. Okay, so this is a continuation of your earlier comment. Do not be afraid. That night was a storm and the power was out, and I had candles. I had candles in the place I was at, but the figure looked like a person sitting on my steps watching me. Yeah, I mean, focus, relive the moment. Activate, relive the moment to conjure up the image of what you saw and ask that watcher to reveal itself. Give me a name. Ask them to reveal their name, what it is they want from you, or what it is you can assist with. That's that simple. That's what I would do to move forward to get more clarity on what it is you experience. Blade of Astarte says, I can't get down with those archangel spirits. I find them to be very adversarial to the work of the left-hand path. Many of them just seem to be sentinels to their God. I agree. And again, I don't knock anybody that does. If you do, that's cool. Look, I always tell people, you do what works for you. If you're getting results, regardless if myself or anybody else doesn't agree with it, that's irrelevant. But I'm in agreement with what you just said, Blade of Astarte. Years ago when I first banishing ritual of the pentagram, it feels very Kabbalah Hebrew mysticism to me. That's why I didn't like it. And it did feel very adversarial. It's crazy. It felt adversarial to the adversary path. It's crazy, but it did. And I'm in agreement. So I feel you on that one. That's my take on it. No, Dank Wizard, good question, but absolutely not. If a Christian or anyone of the Abrahamic faith prays over you and against what you will do, the adverse energy will the adverse energy affect the black adept's work? No, only if you think in your mind it will. It has no power over you. Most of them will sense. I mean, I walk some places, I get the funniest looks, and usually people that are spiritually tuned in, regardless if they're from the Abrahamic faiths or not. I mean, I could walk into a supermarket, I get some crazy ass looks. Like people have sent something, not because I'm special. I'm saying when you're grounded in the energy, to your question, you don't even worry about stuff like that. It's actually funny. Funny in the sense because it holds no power. The only way it holds power, if you start creating thoughts in your mind and giving energy that it's going to affect my work, then and only then it can. But no, answer to your question, absolutely not. A ritual spirit says, wow, I've seen a vision of a Congo spirit around me, but I do understand why they wouldn't want certain people in my life. And I'm not great at picking relations. Yeah. Yeah. Especially as a female. And if it's a male Congo spirit, they're usually very protective of their female that they're guides to. They will create, if there are people in their life they do not like, especially men, they will. I've seen some crazy shit. I've seen women say that they were in a they were in an abusive relationship with a man, physically and verbally. And when in some cases, when the man tried to physically attack or harm them, they came upon this surge of strength that they didn't know where they got it from. And they wound up beating the shit out of that dude. Or beating the shit out of the man. That's the Congo spirit. That can happen. It's real. To those that haven't experienced it, it's not. I don't expect you to accept it. But I've had clients call me up say, I don't know what the fuck happened, but all I do know is it's like when that motherfucker tried to get physical, I felt like this power over me. And I've seen girls knock dudes out, cold clock them, knock them out cold. I'm telling you, it could be that real sometimes. I'm not saying it's the same experience like that for everybody, but you got to understand when dealing with spiritualism or spirits, Congo spirits are very aggressive. I have a Congo spirit that I've been working with for years that back in the day, my godmother actually brought out. If you've ever seen my altar, I got him. He's that dark African dude. You'll see the statue I have wearing the hat, smoking the cigar. And he's very aggressive. He's very sexual by nature, flirt. I mean, the whole nine. I mean, all those pleasures or aspects of life is an aggressiveness. But I know Brother Jag, Brother Mike, they've been at rituals where that spirit has come out. And when that spirit comes out, I from what they told me, I'm taking chairs and lifting these heavy ass chairs up, all types of shit. It's just when the spirit overtakes you, I don't know how to describe it, but it's almost inhuman. What some would classify as inhuman because you embody that spirit. But I say all that to say what I'm trying to get at is Congo spirits are very aggressive in nature. Those that have them, it's about appeasing the spirit. When I say appeasing, acknowledging the spirit, because they'll do shit like that to get your attention. When you appease it and you're able to create harmony with the energy, it's very effective. It's very productive. It's very powerful. It can become a little chaotic to those that are not familiar or know how to work with it. And some have them and they don't know. So that could be a little challenging. But once you get the know-how, anybody can successfully work with them. But a lot of people have them, or a lot of people have some type of connection to them. All right, what else we got? Again, Rosa, Diosa, Taina. Again, thank you for the donation if you're still here. Amelia Gallardo, does offerings on altars count as worship? Don't look at it as worship, as I said earlier. My intentions are to show gratitude. That's different. Showing gratitude is different than worship, because being grateful or showing gratitude, but I always say, when you're doing offerings, I don't suggest, and I'm just saying this in general, not because I'm saying you're doing this. When you're giving offerings, very important. I don't suggest it's something you do frequently, because then spirits feed off of that and they expect it a lot. Do it when it's good to do it occasionally here and there for, as you say, to show gratitude. That's fine. And maybe you didn't mean the word worship in that sense, but I see what you're saying. But yes, it's a good thing to do. And remember, it's always about your intentions. If your intentions are in the right place, your ritualistic work will always come out productive, as long as the intentions are focused and placed in the right place. So, no, that's a great thing. All right. What else we got? Oh, we had another troll. I see you guys deleted by mine. I don't know, man. I don't know what's up with these people, man. They got nothing better to do. It's funny. You know what I notice when I do a video on something that pertains to Christianity or the biblical text or something in relation to that topic? It seems like all the nutheads come. If I do a Lucifer video and a Azazel video, something tied to the Bible or the Quran, you ever notice that's when it seems like these nutheads appear in the chat room? These Bible thumpers, the other dude was straight racist. He was using the N-word, and so that was just some redneck. We had one other time. Remember the one dude that came in here was putting the Confederate flag? It's like get a life, man. It's like was that to compensate for your little dick or your tiny vagina? It's like, come on, get a life. It's kind of comical. I think it's kind of entertaining, though. Anyway, what else we got? And I get controversial here. Aren't magical rituals and religious rituals are structured similarly: consecration, evocation, evocation, cleanup, call out, send forth. Okay, that's a good point. I guess you were addressing, Angel was addressing something there. Yeah, Akpan. Islam in the West most definitely is watered down. Now, here's the, man, you're opening up a can of that one. The problem why Islam in the West is watered down, because most of the people that are leading Islam in the West are Arabs or Pakistanians. They're from places like Pakistan and all these other places. And I've always said this from jump. An American convert to Islam, and I'm talking about Sunni or mainstream Islam, and that's not even getting into the black conscious sects of Islam, and I'll touch on that real quick in a second. But in Sunni Orthodox mainstream Islam in America, most American converts are never really fully accepted. The Arabs and the Pakistanians always look at Americans trying to imitate their way of life. I'm saying this because I saw a lot of this racism in Islam when I was a Muslim going years back as an Ansar. And even visiting masjids, you would never see a black American or American in general really, not saying that there's none that ever did or do, but on a wide scale level, you never really see American converts, especially black American converts, leading Jumu'ah or prayer or salat in the masjids. You don't see them too many as imams. I'm not talking about some of your puppets like Bilal Phillips, who they're put in a place to turn black people on black people, etc. That's a whole nother story. I don't even want to get into that. But I say it's watered down because they're not even speaking the classical Arabic fuchsia that the Quran was revealing. You're getting a lot of Persian, Farsi. There's so many different translations of the Quran, like the Bible. You got the Tariq Tarsal version. You got the Ahmadiyya version of the Quran. You got the Yusuf Ali, which is probably like the equivalent to the King James version of the Bible, which is probably the most widely used or accepted. And we know the original Muslims, just like in Christianity and Judaism, the original Arabs. Remember, Arab is not a race. Hebrew or Jew, there's no such word as Jew. It just means wanderer. Hebrew is not a race, right? Ibre, it means he who crosses over. The first time you find the word Hebrew used is in Genesis chapter 14, verse 13, when the Phoenician Canaanites were describing what Abraham was doing when he was crossing the Tigris-Euphrates River. They said Ibre, one who crosses over. So then from that point on, they referred to the descendants of Abraham as Hebrews. It's not a race. Arab means wanderer, okay? Arab is not a race, because when you go to the Middle East, everybody that classify themselves as Arabs are Pakistanians or Afghanistan or Turkish, but they all classify themselves as Arabs. It's not a race. It's describing an action. It's important to understand that. So Islam is very watered down in the West. You're getting it because the original Arabs were African or black. Do research on Bilal, right? Do research on the Ansars of the Sudan, the real Ansars, not the Dr. York shit that he fucking stole and laid claim to. And we know that's opening up a whole nother can of worms. But do research on the original Arab. The Prophet Muhammad was a black man, but they don't want you to know that because, you know, the Arabs will tell you nobody knows what color Muhammad was, but they have hadiths describing him as a Caucasian or European man with a red beard. How are you going to sit there and tell me nobody knows what race Muhammad was, but in your hadiths, and that's why Islam is very watered down in the West, because they follow the hadiths more than they do the Quran. That's why I say that. Now, and on another note, to keep it brief, because I could do a whole class on that, then you have the more modern day black conscious sects of Islam here in the West. And I don't consider the 5% nation a black Islamic sect, because there's no such thing as Muslim gods. The 5%ers don't consider themselves Islamic in the sense that they're, you know, traditional Muslims. They connect with Islam, an aspect of Islam as a way of life or peace. They refer to it, the system of Islam that the nation of gods and earths connect with is older than the sun, moon, and stars. They don't practice or connect with in any shape, form, or fashion traditional Islam. Then you got a ball of confusion when it comes to the Nation of Islam, because they've incorporated Sunni Orthodox practices with their own practices and teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Master Farad Muhammad. So now that gets into a whole nother level of fuckery and confusion. So it's even more watered down than watered down. It's mass confusion that nobody seems to be able to make order out of. But yeah, good question. What else we got? Dank Wizard. Enochian magic is high magic. Then what exactly is a Keiko demon? Well, look, when we're using the term demon, whether you're saying a Keiko demon, daemon, the variation or the spelling of the word, I say Enochian magic is high magic because how most people work with it, that let's say they're not on the left-hand path, it's high magic because they're working more with the archangel aspect of it. That's why I was saying what I was saying earlier. They'll connect with that aspect of the watchers. We focus more with the Enochian magic and the watchers more with Shemjaza, Azazel, and the main 10 that they talked about, which is the more really, that's why the archangels were sent down to combat what they were doing. So that's the only reason why I differentiated and I said those that work a system of Enochian magic may be more focusing on the archangels. That's why I would classify it more as high magic. For an example, same thing in the Order Template Orientis, which I am a member of. You know, my membership is still active. I don't go regularly, but they'll use the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram in some of their rituals. That's very high magic in nature. It wouldn't be considered earth magic, pagan, Wiccan, and it's definitely not black magic or the dark arts, but it's high magic because it's a little more intense than Wiccan or earth magic, and it's not as dark or intense as dark or black magic. So people would classify Order of the Golden Dawn. That's high magic. The stuff they do in the Golden Dawn, OTO, that's considered high magic. It's not really the dark arts or black magic. That's kind of, excuse me, what I was referring to earlier. Obadiah Desavayu question: if I just did some things that come to mind and I got what I wasn't looking for, is there a way to stop the effects of the energy? Like go back to a neutral point? Yes, you could. It depends on the level of how drastic the change or the effect was. Now, if it's something that was absolutely necessary, like if you're trying to avoid an aspect of yourself or a trauma or something emotional that's part of your past, you can go back to the neutral point, but all you would be doing is just masking it. It's not to say it won't manifest again, but yes, you could. You do have the ability to do that. But I would just make sure we're clear on what it is, what happened, the effect of it, why, and then why are we going back to the neutral point to change it or bring it back from whence it came or bring it back to its neutral state. That may not be a good thing. It just depends. Do your thing, Mandela Born. Get your Marie Laveau on. What else we got? No, I don't consider working Eciceris. I don't consider working with Azazel right-hand path work at all. Most definitely not. It's too intense. It really unlocks. And as I'm talking about it, it's like I see past things that I've done, and I hear every time when somebody asks a question, you can hear the whisper, the voice. It's not right-hand path at all, in my opinion, nature. And if somebody, and I'm not saying you, but if somebody has said that in the past, I don't have no fucking idea what they're working with. It's definitely not Azazel, because I don't see the Azazel energy in any shape, form, or fashion being right-hand path at all. At all. Yeah, so I see we got a third troll. Huh? That's good. Angel got the wrench out. There you go. It's like I say, these fucking people ain't got no life. Let me come in somebody's YouTube room. Nathan Henry sounds like some geek. Oh, so I see Patrick coming. Yeah, I told you, it brings out the Bible thumpers. I love it, man. But the very fact that somebody can get angry or emotional or pissed off, I did my job. I activated another thought process in you, whether you like it or not. At least I gave you something to think about. Well, you got to be a fucking fool to think that everybody's going to agree with your way. Come on, man. Get the fuck out of that shit. Nathan Henry. Sound like some geek. Nathan. Hey, Nathan. How are you, Nathan? I'm sorry. Let me stop clowning. I'm in a clown mood now. We got these clowns coming up in here. I don't want to take it there because, look, man, your feelings will get hurt. Say, Nathan, God bless you, Nathan. May the Lord bless you, Nathan. Let me stop fucking around. What else we got here? All right, what else we got? That's why I gave Angel that axe, baby. Angel got that wrench now. Always these self-hating fools. Yeah, they come. Man, it's fun. Sometimes you need the entertainment. I mean, it's good entertainment. You got to see some of the emails like that. You'll crack up. Maybe I'll do a video on reading some funny ass emails. Nunth Shivek, what is the best way to invoke Tiamat? I have the Grimoire of Tiamat. Excellent book. Be careful with that though. But I haven't got anything out of it. Do you have any suggestions? It's kind of surprised you didn't get anything out of it. Have you? I'm not sure. Have you worked with the sigils in there? Have you done the dream work in there? You didn't get anything out of that. That's kind of odd. What I would do if you didn't get anything out of it, I would use. Here would be a good way. If you've done some work out of that book, and I don't know if you've explored it fully, and that's a pretty good book in my opinion. What I've done from that book, I like to work with the sigils. What I'll do is I'll create my own invocation. I can incorporate an elixir. I could do sigil work possibly before I go to sleep to activate my experiences with Tiamat in my dreams. I've gotten those concepts from the books. I would try creating your own invocations, simply by drawing the sigil or creating the sigil on some type of platform. It could be a piece of paper, piece of cardboard, and do an invocation to sigil, seal it with elixir and a chalice. And you can, in the invocation, ask for some messages in your dreams, etc. Try just coming up from scratch with your own ways if you didn't get anything out of the book. So there is no set way to work with Tiamat. The Grimoire of Tiamat, just like any other book, can give you some suggestions or ideas. So I would just start creating your own things from scratch. That could be whatever you want. Go with your instincts. Go with what you feel. Again, invocations, sigils, dream work, meditations, and visualization. Another good way is put the sigil on the altar, light some black candles, dragon's blood, and just go into a visualization and visualizing, the Tiamat energy, and draw that energy or that presence, the Tiamat, to you. And when I do a ritual like that, I would say the invocation silently to myself. When I'm doing it in a setting like that, I wouldn't say it out loud. Just some suggestions, but there is no right or wrong way. I would suggest you come up with some creative methods and see where it takes you. All right. Damn, that boy Nathan can't stay quiet, man. Ain't glad to shut. And God bless you, Nathan. May the Lord bless you, Nathan. All right, what else we got? Yeah, I happen. I mean, but everybody's different. Maybe he just didn't get nothing out of the book. That can happen. What else we got? Oh, that'd be cool, Mandela Born, if you can. That'd be cool. Record the chants. That would be pretty cool. All right, I got to get to the bottom of this. I don't know if I can get to everybody in. All right, what's here? Mario, whoever. I want to see you get Emily Bull flows to the. You're a fucking loser, Mario. Little bitch hiding behind a computer. Well, maybe I could bulldoze your mama. How about that? But see, this is what we do to little bitches like you. This is what we do to bitches like Mario. Go get a life, bitch. That's what we do to bitches like Mario. All right, now you say it's not you, Mario? Or somebody, all right, I apologize. If that's not you and somebody was stealing your name, my bad. I'm sorry. I was just trying to have a little fun with it. My bad, Mario. If that wasn't you. Yeah, you got people that can do that. They can come in and they got the intelligence, just like you got people that could steal your information and passwords. They got that intelligence, but they ain't got no intelligence to get a fucking life and do something for themselves. All right, this will be the last question here, Mike's Well. Is it safe to work with Andrus, and is a candle sigil and petition enough to send him out on someone low? Be careful. I like an Andrus. Belial is a volatile spirit like that. Can be used for destructive magic, but I always suggest to people, if you're going to send a spirit like Andrus out on someone, there's always a principle that should be governed by. And I'm going to say this is just me. It's something that I am firm on. There has to be some justification there. Now, if you've been attacked wrongfully, or you're in danger, or you just got somebody that is fucking with you, or you're in the right, is what I'm saying, then all systems go. But if you're doing it just because you're hating on somebody, you're jealous of them, or you don't really have a justification, I've seen that backfire, is what I'm trying to tell you. So if you got justification, Mike's World, by all means, all systems go. Yes, now you can use candles, but I'm going to tell you this. To make it more effective, I would anoint that sigil with some of your blood. And I say this in a safe way, all right, just so we're clear, so people ain't fucking confused. Using a ritual blade, or you can use, what do they call the thing? I always forget the name of that thing I use, and I forget the name of it, that people will use to draw blood to take a diabetes test. I forget the name of it. But just draw a bit of your blood and anoint the sigil, because what that does is that activates it with a lot more energy. And when you're working with spirits like that, they require that essence and that energy because it gives it more power. Lancet, there you go. Thank you. I'm sorry. I draw blood. A lancet to me usually, what's the matter? What's the matter? Why are you sitting over there for? Sit over there. What are you sitting over there for? It's more effective when you charge it with that type of energy. That's the purpose. But yeah, if you seem confident and sure of the justification factor, all systems go. But yeah, you can sigil, black can, however, yeah. But I would add that little touch to it. If it was me, when you're doing any energy work with those type of spirits, whether it's Azazel, Lucifer, usually in the draconian current, that's usually something, not that it's mandatory, because it's not, but usually that's something that is utilized to enhance the work. All right. Yeah, cobras, most definitely. That's part of the draconian energy, the serpent energy, the kundalini, all that's connected. Yes, I have a lot. I have two replica black cobras on my altar. I have 2 black cobra candle holders. I have 2 huge replica cobras on my bottom shadow altar. So most definitely, there's definitely the symbolicism of what that represents. There's definitely a connection there. All right. Any special disposal of the candle wax and sigil after the spell work? Well, what you should do with the sigil, you should burn it. I'm sorry. After you anoint it, have you something there on your altar where you want to burn it in the flame of the black candle. The residue, no, I mean the residue as far as the candle wax, just let that. I like to just dispose that in a brown paper bag and throw it in the regular trash. Don't throw it mainly in the trash, just in a brown paper bag. Some like to take it to a crossroads, or you can bury it at a cemetery if you choose. It's not mandatory, but that puts sometimes the finality or the stamp on the work. Yeah, I do definitely identify with cobras on some level, most definitely. All right, people, I'm going to wrap it up. It's been 3 hours. I'm going to stop here. Real quick reminder, we have the event. I know some of you will be here, so looking forward to seeing you guys Friday morning. Those that are traveling, I know there's quite a few of you. Travel safe. 9 a.m. sharp. Make sure we're on time on Friday. We start 9 a.m. sharp. Again, be meet and greet at 9 o'clock. A little coffee and donuts. We'll start at 9:30 sharp with the first presentation. There will be a full itinerary when you guys get there and arrive, so you'll know the full 3-day thing we'll be doing. So I'm looking forward to seeing you guys. Remember, readings and consultations. Again, after tomorrow, I won't really be able to do any until the following week. You could still contact me, and I can get you scheduled for starting next week. And last reminder, the Lilith class, that's Saturday, November 2nd, 3 to 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I will not be doing a video on Thursday due to the fact that we're getting ready for the event over the weekend. So there will be no video on Thursday night. We'll be back on Tuesday night, and we'll talk to everybody then. All right? Peace.